You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
I think we can call the meeting of the Branford Planning and Zoning Commission to order. It is Thursday, February 17th, 2022, and I will introduce members of the commission and staff. We just did it informally, but we'll do it for the record. Commissioner Joe Chadwick. Joe, are you here?
Joe Chadwick is present.
Thank you. Chuck Andrews, Chair. You're supposed to say your name after you speak for these remote meetings for people who are calling it. So, and we'll go over that rule as well. So thank you, Joe. Joe Viuzzo. Joe, are you here?
Joe Viuzzo's here.
Chuck Andrews, Chair. Thank you, Joe. Fred Russo. Fred, you here? Fred, you're muted right now. Can you unmute yourself and speak? You want to?
Now, yeah. Fred Russo here.
Great, thank you, Fred. Chuck Andrews, Chair. Marcy Pelusi. Marcy, you're here?
Marcy Pelusi, present.
Thank you. And I believe Massimo isn't making it. And then Sharon, you're here.
Sharon Hutner is here.
Thank you. And I'm Chuck Andrews, Chair. Our staff this evening is our town planner, Harry Smith. Harry, are you here?
I am here, Harry Smith, town planner.
And our assistant planner, Evan Breining. Evan, you're here?
I am here.
And also our clerk recording secretary is Michelle Martin. So with that, before we go into rules, then we'll ask Marcy to read the notice of public hearing.
The Planning and Zoning Commission of the town of Branford, Connecticut hereby gives notice of public meetings to be held on Thursday, February 17th, 2022 at 7 p.m. by remote technology to consider the applications listed below. Information regarding how to participate in the public hearings will be provided on the commission meetings agenda that will be posted on the town's website at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. 1. Application number 21-11.8, zoning regulation amendment to amend section 6.6E to add BL hybrid rear zone to the MU, BL, CP, IG1, and IG2 heading group of the signs allowed in business zone tables. FSI Acquisitions LLC, care of John Nuff, applicant. Item number 2, application number 21-11.9, special exception for grading, section 6.8, located at 81 through 111 Commercial Parkway and 49 Commercial Parkway, FSI Acquisitions LLC, care of John Nuff, applicant. Hamilton Branford LLC, owner of 81-111 Commercial Parkway, 49 Commercial Parkway LLC, owner of 49 Commercial Parkway. Item number 3, application number 21-11.10, special exception for warehouse distribution, e-commerce and fulfillment center located at 81-111 Commercial Parkway and 49 Commercial Parkway, FSI Acquisitions LLC, care of John Nuff, applicant, Hamilton Branford LLC, owner of 81 through 111 Commercial Parkway, 49 Commercial Parkway LLC, owner of 49 Commercial Parkway. At said hearings, all persons will have the right to be heard. Written communication should be submitted. Copies are on file in the Planning and Zoning Commission's office at the Planning and Zoning Department, 1019 Main Street, Branford, Connecticut 06405. Written communications may be sent to the above address or to planning and zoning at branford-ct.gov.
Chuck Andrews, Chair. Thank you, Marcy. Just an alert on tonight's agenda. The main item that we're going to be just hearing tonight are the Amazon applications. Those are There's a series of applications. Those are the ones that Marcy read in the notice. We expect that's going to take up the bulk of the evening. If you're here on 61 Bourbon Associates, 61 Bourbon Drive, that's the old hospice redevelopment multifamily use proposal. That matter is going to be continued. I understand Mr. Nuff is here, represents that applicant, but I understand that that's going to be continued to our March 17th hearing. Still waiting to get on the Water Pollution Control Authority, get word from them.
That's
so
correct.
If you're here on that, thank you, Mr. Nuff. So if you're here on that one, that's not going to go forward, just letting people know. So we expect the bulk will be on this. We may have some deliberations and other items, but we'll see how far we get. The hope is, I think our meeting last time was till I think like 11:40. The hope is I think all of us lose steam. I mean, we may go after 10, but maybe up to 10:30 or something. The hope is not to continue along in arduous meetings, and we can just continue them. So with that, I'll go through our format for our public hearing presentation, which is our normal format, which is the applicant goes first. The applicant can make its presentation. And applicant typically, in this case, will have a series of consultants who cover different aspects of the application. They'll make that presentation. After that, we turn it over to commission members and staff. We have staff review a staff report, questions, comments from commission members. At that point, we'll open up to the public, and I'll ask Evan to explain the process for participating in the public portion. We ask that you, when you have your public comments, that you state your name and address for the public.
Recording in progress.
And that after that, we'll allow all members of the public wish to speak about that, whatever they want to say. And then we allow the applicant to respond to public comments. We may or may not continue the public hearing. It's likely that the Amazon one, and it's certainly not unusual for major applications to go more than one evening. And that's likely to be the case for the Amazon. So with that, Evan, can you review once again the process for public participation? We'll refresh you when we get to that point, but which may not be right away because we want to hear the applicant, but please review that, Evan.
Sure. If your computer has a microphone for two-way communication and you wish to participate in the public hearing, down at the bottom of your screen, there is a reactions button. And once you press that, there's the raise your hand function. Please indicate that you'd like to participate using that. You can also indicate in the chat that you'd like to participate. If you can also type in your comments into the chat. And if you're dialing in by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand and indicate that you would like to comment on an application. And like our chairman said, if you could please provide your name when you would like to comment. Thank you.
Chuck Andrews, Chair. Thank you, Evan. With that, is the applicant ready to proceed?
We are ready, Mr. Chairman.
You may
Thank
proceed.
you. Thank you. My name is John Nuff. I'm an attorney with an office at 147 Broad Street, and I'm here tonight on behalf of FSI Acquisitions, LLC. Okay. Dennis, I'm not sure, we're not proposing a golf course, but it's a nice looking one in any event. So FSI, while Dennis figures out, there you go. Thank you, Dennis. FSI is the contract purchaser. The property is located at 49 and 81 through 111 Commercial Parkway. The properties consist of about 21.5 acres, and it's located in a BLHR zone. That's the local business hybrid rear zone. As you noted, there are 3 applications before you. The first is a special exception application for warehouse, distribution, and e-commerce facility. The second is a special exception application for grading and earth removal activities. And the third is a regulation amendment application simply to add the BLHR zone to the sign table that is found in section 6.6E of your regulations. When you created the BLHR zone, there's just a slight oversight in not adding that zone to the table of 6.6E. So all that it says is that you're going to treat the signage in this zone the way you treated in all your other commercial zones, including the BL, IG1, IG2, and mixed use zones. One bit of housekeeping. We have provided the required mailed notices to all of the property owners within 100 feet of our property, and we have provided the certificates of mailing to your staff on February 10th. Our proposed use is a 90,000 square foot Amazon last mile facility. Last mile is just a simple everyday vernacular for what you call warehousing, distribution, and e-commerce and fulfillment center. It's simply the last stop that a package makes before it comes to your doorstep. It's the place at which a package is placed on one of the blue vans you see frequently outside your own front doors, and then it goes off on its way for its delivery. The last mile is not to be taken literally. There is a radius around which packages from this location will be distributed, which is more than a mile, of course, but the last mile is the typical way in which these projects are referred. It's interesting.
Can I interrupt 1 second? Harry Smith, Town Planner.
Yep.
Just a technical point. We've got the hearing set up, and I believe probably the second and the third could be considered together, but the zoning regulation amendment, really in terms of its content, is a distinct element. I don't know, Mr. Nuff, if you want to just do that after, before, and sort of do that little snippet. We can have the hearing for that, open and close it, possibly, if it's all it's needed, and sort of segregate that out. I think that would be preferable.
I mean, candidly, I think we can do them all simultaneously, but if you have the preference that we segregate that one from the other two, why don't we do that at the end? Because I think the commission, the public are really going to care more about the project itself rather than the fact that we're going to be having signage similar to all the other commercial areas. So
no, that's fine. That's fine with the chair to me.
Okay,
That's fine.
okay, terrific. Thank you. So what's interesting is that the only zone in which this use permitted is the BLHR zone, and the only property that's in that zone is this one. So this site has been specifically targeted for this use by the commission, and you're to be commended for that. Because as you're all aware, these properties have been vacant literally for decades. During the heyday of big box retail, which is back in the mid-90s, this site was approved for a large format retail development. This, in fact, is one of the first projects I ever worked on. But the railroad bridge hadn't been completed yet. And so no construction could take place there. And here we are, nearly 3 decades later. So, and maybe we're fortunate that nothing was constructed there because, we're not really quite sure at the moment how this would have fared. So that switch from bricks and mortar retail to e-commerce on this property reflects perfectly what's happened in the global, national, and the local Branford marketplaces. And thanks to your foresight in rezoning the property, we have a wonderful opportunity to make these properties productive again from every perspective. First, by making a significant contribution to the grand list. Second, by offering important employment opportunities. 3, by supporting local businesses. You'll note on the site plan, we don't have any services. We don't supply gas. We don't have a place where people can get lunch or breakfast. All the local businesses that supply those types of uses will be improved by the addition of this last mile facility, because all the folks who work both within the facility itself and those drivers who will be frequenting it need to stop and whether they need gas, whether they need tires, whether they need a cup of coffee, will be utilizing your local businesses for those purposes. And then fourth, it's also dramatic improvement from an environmental perspective. And we're going to hear a little bit more in a minute about Amazon's sustainability contribution or their commitments. But with regard to this site specifically and what's under your jurisdiction, we are improving the quality of the stormwater leaving the site. We are reducing the rates of stormwater leaving the site. We're even reducing the volume of stormwater leaving the site. And I know that's important for the folks who live downstream. And we're doing this by reducing the impervious coverage currently on the site and infiltrating a portion of the stormwater to comply with the MS4 requirements. And we're very cognizant of downstream flooding concerns and we certainly did not want to do anything to exacerbate those concerns. So let me tell you where we are in terms of the process. We presented this proposal to the Economic Development Commission back in September. They voted to support it. We submitted an application to the Inland Wetland Commission in October. Even though there's no wetlands on the site, there are some just offsite along the Branford connector. And that commission gave our application its typical very close scrutiny, which we welcomed and appreciated, and they voted unanimously to approve it in December. We also obtained a height variance unanimously from the ZBA in October, and we received WPCA approval in November. More recently, we received town engineering and zoning staff comments, as well as comments from your traffic peer reviewer, Steve Ullman. We have provided responses to all those comments yesterday and today, and we can get into the details later, but at least with regard to the engineering and zoning staff comments, either of those comments were indicating that we comply with your regulations or were otherwise routine and sought some clarification. And so we're very grateful for the staff's time and inputs. We have prepared a very concise but thorough presentation. I understand and can sympathize with the commission's late nights. I've been here with you on the more recent ones. So our hope is that our presentation can give you all the information that you need in a rather concise fashion, and then we'd be happy to answer any and all questions from the commission or the public. We have a number of presenters. Rather than me introducing each one of them, we will just simply pass the baton from person to person, but the lineup is going to be as follows. The first presenter is Eric Daniel, who is the Senior Program Manager of Real Estate for Amazon. He will describe the day-to-day operations of the proposed facility and how those operations drive the overall design of the project. We'll also discuss Amazon's commitment to sustainability. Next will be Dennis Godier, who is the Senior Project Manager and Landscape Architect with BL Companies. Then he will discuss the site plan and landscape plan. Jeff Dewey is a professional engineer from BL. He'll discuss grading, drainage, stormwater treatment. Corey Nardone is the Senior Architect from BL Companies, and obviously we'll discuss the building elevations and the interior. And the last presenter is a professional engineer and our traffic engineer, Rob Baltramitis. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Eric Daniel.
Go to the next slide. Good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Daniel. Thanks, John. I'm a Senior Program Manager on the entitlements team here at Amazon. I want to thank the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff for all of their work thus far on the application. I know a lot of work goes into that, so we appreciate your time and your attention here.
Eric, can you hold on for one second? Mr. Chairman, can you all hear Eric well enough? Or Eric, I don't know if you can get a little bit closer to the mic. I mean, obviously you have some very important things to relate. I just want to make sure that the commission can hear you.
Yeah, let's make sure you can hear me. Is that better?
It's a little muffled, but
a little muffled. Let's see. Just give me one second. All right, is that any better?
I don't think you're connected, Eric.
Not connected. What's this? No. All right, I think I'm just going to have to speak up.
Okay.
Is that any better?
As long as you can be, that would be preferred. Sure. Thanks.
Okay. So what you have before you today is a delivery station. This is a much smaller facility than the fulfillment centers that some of you may be familiar with. And as John mentioned, this is the last stop for a package before it goes to the customer. So we've carefully designed the operations at this site to mitigate traffic impacts on the surrounding area. And as you'll see, while there are periods when the site goes dark, this is a 24/7 operation. For now, let me walk you through this site plan and give you a sense of what a typical day at the delivery station is going to look like here. So let's first look at the area identified in red on the site plan. Tractor trailers will come to the site predominantly in the overnight hours outside of peak traffic periods. And you're usually going to see no more than 1 or 2 trucks an hour. So these trucks will pull in, come up to the loading burst there so they can be unloaded. Our Amazon associates will begin to arrive in the overnight hours as well. They will enter and park in the area identified in yellow on the site plan here. They're going to enter the site and unload the tractor trailers and set up for the morning delivery. These are Amazon employees, and full-time associates are going to have a starting average wage of $18 an hour, comprehensive benefits, same as all corporate Amazon employees, so medical, dental, 401k, and a number of other benefits. Okay, so let's now move to the area identified in blue. Amazon vans are parked here overnight. Amazon owns these vans and leases them to delivery service partners, or DSPs. DSPs are third-party, small and medium-sized businesses that we contract with to handle our delivery routes. So in the morning, the first wave of van drivers arrive in their personal vehicles or carpool or rideshare or public transit where it's available. They'll park their personal vehicles in the area identified in pink. They will get into a van in the blue area, located in the blue area, and they will drive the van around into the loading zone adjacent to the building identified in green. Loading of the vans is going to take about 20 to 30 minutes. And while that first wave of vans is being loaded, the second wave of van drivers are going to arrive, park in the newly vacated spaces where those vans from the first wave left. They'll pick up their vans and proceed to the van staging area, which is identified in purple on the site plan here. Once loaded, that first wave of van drivers is going to exit the site, and the second wave of van drivers is then going to pull up into the green area and be loaded. And this process will repeat itself. That second wave will then depart the site, and this process is going to repeat itself in waves. At this site on a typical day, we'll have three waves of vans. The departure window from about 10 to 11 a.m. for these vans is specifically designed to mitigate impacts on rush hour periods. The vans will leave for an 8 to 10 hour delivery route and remain within about 45 or 60 minute drive from the site, with the last wave leaving at about 11 a.m., at which point the site's going to go quiet until the afternoon. So in the afternoon, from about 4 to 5:30, the site's going to utilize its Amazon Flex program. This program works similar to Uber or Lyft in that Amazon Flex drivers are going to use their own personal vehicles, and the program is controlled through an Amazon Flex app on the driver's smartphone. Instead of picking up people, however, these Amazon drivers are going to, Flex drivers are going to pick up packages from the delivery station and drop them off at customers' homes. At about 5:30, the site is again going to go quiet until the delivery vans return in the evening. So after the 8 to 10 hour dispatch delivery route, the vans are going to return to the site, with the first vans returning at about 7 p.m. And once the vans return, they're going to undergo a safety check and return to the van parking area. The driver will then get back into their personal vehicle and leave the site. Again, once all of the vans return by about 9 p.m., again, the site will go quiet until about 10 p.m. when the tractor trailers again begin to arrive and the process repeats itself. So that, in a nutshell, is sort of a day in the life here at the delivery station. Dennis, I think we can go to the next slide here. Okay, so now I'm going to talk briefly about Amazon's commitment to sustainability. So in 2019, Amazon co-founded the Climate Pledge. This is a commitment by Amazon, as well as a number of other companies, to be net zero carbon across our business by 2040. Shipment zero is our goal, to deliver 50% of Amazon shipments with net zero carbon by 2030. Through the Climate Pledge Fund, Amazon is investing $2 billion to support the development of technologies and services that reduce carbon emissions. Amazon is on a path to powering our operations with 100% renewable energy by 2025. And we plan to have 10,000 electric vehicles on the road as early as 2022, and all 100,000 electric vehicles deployed by 2030. The Right Now Climate Fund is a $100 million fund that supports nature-based climate solutions. It allows Amazon to take immediate action by supporting a number of conservation and restoration efforts. And finally, in 2020, Amazon became the world's largest corporate purchaser of renewable energy, reaching 65% renewable energy across our business. And with that, I will turn it over to Dennis.
Thank you, Eric. Good evening. For the record, Dennis Godair, Senior Project Manager with BL Companies. As Attorney Nuff had mentioned, I am a licensed landscape architect. I'm also a certified land use planner. To give you an overview of the project, to complement Eric's background, the site, as I'm sure you are well aware, is roughly a 21.5 acre parcel, highly disturbed, previously developed. Roughly 85.5% of the property is impervious currently, with pavement that's deteriorating, or building pads that remain from those that have been demolished. We'll discuss that a little bit more in the relevance of that in a moment. Try to advance the slide. Eric walked you through the operations, the van parking up on the left side of the screen, which is to the north near the cul-de-sac of Commercial Parkway, the building, and then the launch pad location and the staging for the vans and the associates. The vans enter from Commercial Parkway near the cul-de-sac. They can circulate through the parking area or into the launch pad. They can then move through and exit the launch pad through this drive, which is completely separated from the associate parking, which is an Amazon standard with ensuring safety and efficiency of circulation. There is a detention area located here closer to the Branford connector. There are retaining walls along the associate parking location, as well as the driveway. We are meeting the requirements of the separation between terraced retaining walls, as well as from the distance from the parking. Again, that was a comment from staff that we have confirmed in our response letter for that as well. Jeff Dewey in a moment will discuss a little bit more about the stormwater management, but we did go through in detail with the Wetlands Commission to ensure treatment is above and beyond the requirements of the state of Connecticut, including ensuring that all of the water, all of the runoff from the roof is being treated in the infiltration systems, again, which will be noted. And as Attorney Nuff had mentioned, there's a wetland system. You can see, let me circle it over here, to the right-hand side. There's a finger, which is in the connector right-of-way. And there's a small one just off the map over here on the left side. So we've been addressing, and we have addressed the Wetland Commission concerns with the, being noted with the approval. Just some of the technical aspects for the record. We are meeting the requirements of the zoning standards from the lot area size right down to the coverage. Just to make a note on the coverage, we are at, like as I had noted, about 85%. We are reducing that down to 83%, which helps with our stormwater requirements as well. Building coverage is below the maximum allowed by the district as well. I won't go into all of the details, but the setbacks as well are being met. Again, parking, we are meeting the parking requirements based upon the program of the facility. There is a little bit more parking than would be required under the minimum for the zoning regulations. So we are consistent with that. The impervious coverage, we are at, noting here, 82.66%. It is above the 60%, but it is an pre-existing non-conforming condition with the 85% that is currently existing on site. So we are improving that, and we are not increasing the non-conformity. Briefly to touch upon landscaping, we are using primarily native plant materials, or those that are and have been proven to be adaptive to the hardiness zone that we are within here in Connecticut and along the coastline of Connecticut. And we are also addressing and have addressed the requirements for buffers along the front yard, the side yard, landscaping along the front yard with the 50 feet requirement as well. There were some notes on the comments from staff just asking to confirm. In our response, we did confirm that we are meeting those requirements. And then lighting, which kind of goes hand in hand with how landscaping is placed. We are below the 8-foot candles. There was a comment about the lighting under the canopy of the building for the loading space. We are within the requirements of that. That would be a gas station, but because of the nature of the facility, we are required, we need to have safety measures in place for people that are loading vans, maneuvering around moving vehicles. So it's important to ensure that. And that canopy, as it is a canopy, so it is enclosed as on the roof side of things. Obviously not on all four sides, but on one side and the roof as well to help minimize that. And there is no uplighting proposed on the property. And with that, I'm going to ask Jeff Dewey, our senior PE on the project, to talk a little bit about the grading on the site and the technical aspects of the stormwater.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Dewey. I'm a professional engineer with BL Companies. Happy to be here this evening. I will be as brief as possible, and I am happy to answer questions at the end of our presentation. So please take note. And again, I'll be as brief as possible. I'd like to start by just discussing the site in general. Basically to the north or the left of the page, general existing grade around here is 69, elevation 69, and it's fairly level. As we work our way across the site, southerly to the right, and we get towards the proposed loading dock in the building, you can see the existing contours. So we have roughly a 5% grade where it drops off consistently, all the way down to elevation 36 at the bottom right corner or the southwest portion of the site. So as you can see, we go from elevation 69 down to 36, basically, which is a fairly large amount of elevation to change. Certainly to put a building in and parking, we want to have less slopes. So there will be some fill required. Our basic grading plan and northeast portion, or the upper left, we have roughly about a 1 to 2 foot cut for the parking up there. And then as we work our way south near the loading, because certainly loading is dropped 4 feet below the building elevation. So we have a 5 foot cut proposed in there. And then up in the upper northwest, way to the left in the project, we have roughly a 1 to 2 foot fill down in this corner. As we work our way south or to the right, we're trying to maintain a fairly level project site, which is necessitated by parking and driveways and what have you. So this is where we get into a fill. As the project existing grade drops off, our fill is increased. So we have some fills up to around 14 feet in the south areas. In the very southeast corner of the site, you can see we have retaining walls. They're terraced. So right around that parking lot, the bottom corner, the southerly corner of the parking lot, we have approximately 15 feet of fill. And at the very edge, by the edge of the driveway, at that most southern extreme corner where the elevation drops down to 36, we have approximately 20 feet of fill. Again, which will be taken up with the retaining walls as much as possible. We anticipate that we're going to have an overall fill of around 78,870 cubic yards site-wide. Again, due to the existing topography, this became very much a fill site. Dennis, if you could go to the next slide. So I'll briefly discuss some of the stormwater features we have here. Just to note that the existing site, which had more impervious surface than what we're proposing, did not have any stormwater mitigation on the site at all. We did not have any stormwater quantity or quality mitigation. So there, by doing anything on the site with stormwater would be a huge improvement over what was existing. Basically, we have designed a system to meet Connecticut DEP as well as DOT for water quality and quantity standards, as well as the Branford requirements. The site has a natural divide in the northern portion. The very small part of the extreme north flows north and then goes west off site, goes underneath the Branford connector, and then goes northerly to a very sizable wetlands located adjacent to the Branford connector and 95. The majority of the site under existing conditions, as well as proposed, flows to the south, where there is a culvert again underneath the Branford connector, which eventually flows to Canoe Brook. And as part of our design goal was not only to provide water quality and water quantity mitigation, but to go over and above the normal to protect the Canoe Brook watershed. Because as we understand, there have been some issues in the past there. So we're trying to do all we can to improve the conditions down there. To do this, what we've done is we have 2 subsurface detention basins, the northerly one, as you can see in teal, and then the southerly one in green. Those would be completely subsurface underneath the pavement. And then we have a surface stormwater management basin shown in yellow, as well as a rain guard shown in, I'm not even sure what to call that color, an off green, if you will. Overall, so what we were able to do is reduce the peak flow rate leaving the site for the northern portion of the site, which is the small area that goes to the north. We have an average reduction of the storms we assess of around an 8% reduction. To the south, which drains to Canoe Brook, we were able to attain a 38% reduction in the peak flow leaving the site, which is a pretty phenomenal reduction. As mentioned by Attorney Nuff, we're also able to reduce the volume, which is not typical of stormwater management. However, again, we made an extra effort to do so. To the north, again, as it works out, it's an 8% volume reduction to the north. And to the south, the Canoe Brook system, we're able to attain a 13% reduction in the stormwater leaving the site. These are very significant, especially to the south, very significant reductions. And as a professional engineer, I am normally not able to report such huge reductions. So hopefully it's understood the level of reductions that we are proposing here. As far as stormwater quality, again, the existing system has no measures for stormwater quality. What we are proposing is what's called a treatment train, which I'm sure everybody is used to hearing that terminology nowadays. We have slightly varied treatment train for this site, depending on its north or south. But in general, it starts with catch basins with 4-foot deep sumps and hooded outlets to capture not just sand, sediment, and debris, but floatables as well. We have our subsurface detention basins in the north and south. They have what's called an isolator row as part of their system, which achieve 80% total suspended solids removal, if not better. Our surface detention basin has a sediment forebay that's sized in accordance with DEP requirements, and we actually are over and above their requirement to, again, capture sand and sediments from getting into the system. And the surface basin also provides the 12 inches of freeboard above the 100-year max water surface elevation. As part of our water quality effort, what we were able to achieve again is 100% retention of the design water quality volume. So basically the 1 inch of runoff, or what's commonly known as the first flush, will be retained within our detention systems and infiltrated into the soil. This is a DEP recommendation for getting the level of water quality that we hope to get when we design these stormwater management systems. And then at our discharge points, to the north, we tie into the existing piping system. To the south, we have the option. There is existing stormwater pipes to the south and the culvert that goes beneath the Branford connector. But as part of our design, we wanted to take advantage of the existing wetlands that Dennis had pointed out earlier. So basically, our discharge from the stormwater management basin, the yellow, flows to a riprap outlet and a level spreader system, which will maintain velocities less than erosive levels for soils. And then it'll take advantage of that wetland finger that reaches up towards the basin, and there'll be additional stormwater polishing before it reaches the Branford connector cross culvert. As a side note as well, we have 3 hydrodynamic separators proposed in the system, as well as our overall groundwater recharge calculations. 0.006 acre feet is what's required by the DEP requirements. We are providing 0.228 acre feet. To give you an idea of what this is, the 0.006 acre feet. Now, so an acre foot is 43,560 square feet. So the required would be 0.006 times 43,560. And we're providing 0.228. So there's a significant amount of groundwater recharge we're providing that is not only above and beyond what DEP requires, but well above and beyond what's actually not provided in the existing site. So again, in summary, I think we have done a great job, the design team in general, in putting together a stormwater management plan that greatly improves what's leaving the site in its current state, as well as providing a detailed operation and maintenance plan to assure that this system will keep functioning and providing this level of water quality and quantity mitigation. On a side note, at this point, as far as I understand, we have no outstanding staff comments with regard to the grading, drainage, or erosion control plans. Our site utility plans have been coordinated with the appropriate utility companies. And we do have our retaining walls designed and been reviewed for conformance. And so overall, we think as far as the grading and drainage and erosion control, as well as the overall site plan, we think we have put together a very, very good package. I do not see any issues. And as far as I know, as I mentioned, there's no outstanding staff comments at this point. I think in the interest, if anybody has any questions, we're probably best to wait till the end of the presentation. So at this point, I'd like to pass it off to Corey Nardone, also of BL Companies, so he could discuss some of the aspects of the building and the building design.
Thank you, Jeff. As Jeff mentioned, my name for the record is Corey Nardone. I'm a senior architect here at BL Companies and the architect for the project here. My portion of the presentation probably is a little simpler than the science and the daily operations that we've heard, but thank you, Eric and Jeff and Dennis, for your contributions. And you can see on the screen here, we have a floor plan of the overall building, which, as we've heard, is a last mile delivery station for Amazon. It's about 100,000 square feet. And to the left of the page, that corresponds with kind of the north section of the site where the tractor trailers will be pulling in the overnight period. Those back up to a loading dock, which is sunk 4 feet. And then the trucks are unloaded into the main warehouse space, which is the large open volume of white. And that's where the material handling equipment, conveyors and associates and such will separate all of the packages overnight and stack them into racks, where they will then be loaded out onto the van cycles that leave the building in the morning through the west of the site, through kind of the dashed sections, through the 6 doors that you can see along the bottom of the plan, onto the vans, which will be located in those nice rectangles that are lined up outside the building, which are underneath the canopy. The other function of the building is pretty straightforward, is the office block section to the upper right-hand corner of the plan on the screen. That's where all the associates come in the overnight period. They're parked in the area that Eric explained in the yellow at the beginning of the presentation. They enter the circulation through the entrance there in the middle, and then there is a break room function and also a training room area there where new employees are oriented. And then, of course, the support areas and toilets and electrical and things of that nature are also located in that office block area. So in terms of the delivery station, that's pretty much how the floor plan is oriented. And Dennis can go to the next slide. We can talk more about the look and feel. You can see some of the elevations of what the exterior of the building looks like. You know, as John mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we went through our commission in terms of the height of the building and received our variance for the height of the overall building. It's a pretty straightforward concrete building. You can see in the middle of the south elevation at the top of the screen, that section which will front the associate parking lot, where the associates will enter the building. That's kind of where we get a little bit of our architectural elements and features. And I'm sure we're all here familiar with the Amazon Prime Blue, which will be featured throughout the building. The exterior is all a straight concrete wall that gets a little bit of that paint, as mentioned. On the north side, as we discussed on the floor plan, you'll see kind of where the loading docks are, and then the canopy on the right-hand side. And to leave you with kind of an image, if none of you have seen one of these, I think Dennis has put in a nice slide here, which represents what kind of that Amazon delivery station look and feel will be like. I know it looks a little flat on the 2D elevation, so we thought we would present this for you. You can see the Amazon hub there on the left. I'm sure some of you have heard that term, where people walk up and they're able to get packages out of lockers, and you can see the associate entry with the blue metal panels in the middle of the screen, and kind of like the look and feel of the overall project. So while my architecture part is small, it is a nice look and feel, and I think that as with everyone else, I think this is a good project for the area. And with that said, I think I can pass it off to Rob to dive into some of the deeper meanings of traffic, which is probably something that we're a lot more interested in discussing.
Sure. Thank you, Corey. So first I'll ask Mr. Chairman, can you hear me well?
This is Chuck Anders, Chair. I can hear you. Can everyone else hear you? I could hear everyone so far, even though the first speaker was muffled. But I can hear you. Keep speaking, though.
Will do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening to you and commissioners. My name is Rob Ultramitis. I'm a professional engineer. I've been practicing in the field of traffic engineering for some 28 years. A little bit about myself. I'm used to, when I testify, just having to qualify myself as a traffic expert. The first 80 years or so of my career was with a consulting transportation engineering firm. The next 20 years consulting on my own in combination with being a full-time town engineer, public works director for a rather large municipality here in Connecticut. And as part of my duties there, I maintain and oversee more than 30 town traffic signals, including 4 closed loop systems, which are computer controlled systems. And of course, I provide commentary on traffic matters to my local planning and zoning commission and our local traffic authority as well. So my involvement with this project has really been as a collaborative effort with BL Companies, that is the engineer of record. I've been retained by BL in the past, and even this developer on some rather large scale projects. So again, my role here, it's really to collaborate. It started at the beginning of the project, where I really worked as a side-by-side peer reviewer with BL while they developed the report and their findings. So with that, I am going to be thorough, but using Attorney Knupp's words, concise. So, I'll get through this information. Presenting the traffic study to you. So the purpose of the traffic study is to determine the impact that this project will have on the adjacent roadway network, and to develop mitigation strategies if necessary. And we do that by building, analyzing, and comparing models of 3 conditions. Those are the existing conditions, the no build condition, and build condition. And I'll define all of those. But one of the things we have to determine for our traffic impact study is what period of day are we going to consider? And Eric Daniel was our first speaker tonight, and he talked about how Amazon, this facility, this last mile, is really a 24/7 facility. They know their operation so super well, and the facility itself really doesn't have its own defined peak. There's a lot of things happening throughout those 24 hours in a day. So what's most appropriate for us to study are the peak periods associated with the adjacent roadway network. So we took a look at weekday morning peak periods, weekday afternoon peak periods, and the Saturday midday peak period as well. I just want to make sure. Okay, so I see the my presentation graphics are up. Thank you for that, Dennis. But I wasn't sure if you had me on video or if you wanted to. So regardless, I will continue. So the next thing we have to determine for the traffic impact study is our study area. This is an aerial photograph. You see the site located along the north side of the Branford connector and south side of Commercial Parkway. That's highlighted in red. To the top, of course, is I-95. I-95 in this section of Branford carries about 82,000 vehicles a day. Route 1 is to the south or east of us in the vicinity of the site that carries about 22,000 vehicles per day. So as a general rule of thumb, following ITE or Institute of Transportation Engineer guidelines for traffic impact studies, we'll normally determine the study area based on the number of new trips that we put through an intersection. And that general rule of thumb is about 100 trips, either coming or going through an intersection. As you'll hear in just a couple of minutes of my presentation, you'll see that for the morning and afternoon peak periods, we don't even generate that level of traffic total. On a Saturday midday, we're slightly higher than that 100. So that would have led to actually a very small study area, but to take a conservative approach, in addition to the intersection of Route 1 at Commercial Parkway, which of course is the access point to our facility, we looked at 7 other intersections here as well. So Dennis, I think you'll do the pointing for me. We'll start at the very bottom. That is, that is the intersection of Route 1 at Short Beat Road, Route 142. And moving north on Route 1, the next intersection of our study is Route 1 at the Branford Connector. The next intersection north is Commercial Parkway at Route 1, opposite 1151 West Main Street, a retail development. We'll talk about that part of this conversation as well. The next intersection is Route 1 at Main Street, Route 146. And working our way north along Route 1, that's Route 1 at Cherry Hill Road. Further north, much to the north, is Route 1 at Cedar Street. And, you know, because our delivery traffic will be oriented to and from I-95, we also went up Cedar Street to both interchanges with I-95, so both the northbound and southbound interchanges. So it's a total of 8 signalized intersections that we considered as part of our study. So, as I mentioned, we compare 3 different models to determine what the project impact is. The first is the existing conditions model, and that's what's happening today. I think, Dennis, you can go to the next slide, if you will. So to generate the existing condition model, we want to take an inventory of the current intersection geometry of the intersections of our study. We want to know such things such as the traffic controls that are out there. Is it stop control? Is it signalized? If it's signalized, what is the phasing sequence and what are the timings allocated to those phases? Probably the most important component is the volumes by turning movement at these locations. COVID has really given traffic engineers you know, it's been a thorn in our side, if you will, because it's altered traffic volumes and patterns. We were able to get our hands on some very good manual counts for the Branford Connector Corridor Study from 2017. So we took those counts, we applied an applicable growth factor to those to raise them to our existing condition. Our report is from late 2021. But what we also did is take that information, we submitted it to DOT's Bureau of Policy and Planning and got their approval that they're representative of existing conditions in our study area. And that's obviously very important. So the next part of the scenarios we'll look at, the second scenario is what we call the no build condition. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the no build condition is, and sometimes, and I understand, you know, in Branford, you have, you've got significant development in Branford, much like in my town. So as a commission, you've heard many traffic presentations. I'm quite sure of. No build is also called a background condition, but we'll call it no build this evening. So no build is, those are the conditions at the time of the project completion, but it doesn't include the project. So in other words, I always like to use an example. If a project was going to take 5 years to complete, we'd want to know what are the existing conditions 5 years from now. That would be your no build condition. This is, although it's a 90,000 square foot building, this is something that could be structured within a 1 year time frame. So we grow our traffic out essentially 1 year to, you know, this year, end of 2022. Also in no build traffic, we want to include traffic in other developments in the area that are approved but not yet constructed. The Vox Church located at the end of Commercial Parkway has been added to the background traffic. That is, and we recognize that that is an open facility, but at the time of those 2017 counts, it was not, so it's appropriate to add it to the background traffic. Similarly, there's a development proposed directly across the street from Commercial Parkway on Route 1 at 1151 West Main Street. That is a retail center. Additional traffic has been added into our no build condition to represent that as well. It is also appropriate to include roadway improvements that are planned but not yet constructed, but will be constructed when you know, when our facility would open. So the aforementioned 1151 West Main Street proposed some offsite improvements to Route 1, namely a right turn lane into their site. So northbound Route 1, new right turn lane into their site. and also extension of existing southbound left turn lane into their site. So they're making that slightly longer. So again, it's appropriate to include that in our no build scenario as well. So the third scenario that we model and analyze is what's called the build or full build scenario. So next slide, please, Dennis. And the build scenario is what includes our new site traffic. Now, normally, site trips are taken from ITE's trip generation. Again, ITE being the Institute of Transportation Engineers. Trip generation is currently in its 10th edition. That manual is I always say it's the Bible, if you will, for traffic engineers and planners to estimate new site generated trips for various land uses. What that manual is a compilation of studies that looks at some measurable aspect of various land uses and compares it to known counted trips. So in an example, a hotel, you could estimate the site traffic based on the number of guest rooms. For a fueling facility, it could be the number of fuel dispensers. ITE, the closest land use code to, because they do not have a e-commerce code, the most applicable is their land use code number 154, which is high cube transload short-term storage warehouse. That is based on square footage in trip generation, and a 90,000 square foot facility would be expected to generate only 8, 10, and 12 total trips during the AM, PM, and Saturday. So again, that's 8, 10, and 12 total trips, very low for a 90,000 square foot facility. We heard Eric Daniel, he was our first speaker this evening. He talked about the trip generation characteristics of a last mile facility. He talked about the arrival of the associates, the disbursement of the delivery vans, the arrival of tractor trailer trucks. In this case, it is very prudent to use the information provided by the tenant to estimate our site traffic. Based on the information submitted by the tenant and also reviewed by your peer reviewer, we'd expect this facility to generate similar traffic in the morning, 83 trips in the afternoon peak period, and 109 on the Saturday midday. So similar in the morning, but 8 times higher and 9 times higher than those ITE rates for a similar use. So taking the most conservative approach to this traffic study, we're of course using the tenant rates. Those new numbers are distributed amongst the roadway network based on a rather detailed, what we call a gravity model. Again, because this facility will service deliveries for kind of a close region here within 30, 40 minutes. What we do is actually look at demographics and population densities to try to ascertain where trips will originate and be destined to. The new site traffic is divided up based on that distribution. It is added or superimposed to the no build condition, and then that represents the build condition. All right. So with all that, we now have an existing model, we have a no build model, and we have a build model. So the next step is to do our analyses and then compare. So the next slide, please. Thank you. So the analyses are done following the methodology of the Highway Capacity Manual that's published by the Transportation Research Board. And the software that we use to do that is called Synchro. That is the easily the most widely accepted software for applying the Highway Capacity Manual methodology. So we evaluate intersections and we rate them in terms of level of service. I'm sure you've all heard that term. Level of service is really a measure of the average driver delay. It's done on a letter grade system, much like school grades, A through F, where A is excellent operation, very little delay. F is failing operation, breakdown of an intersection. We've all been there at the traffic light where you're waiting 2 or 3 cycles to pass through, and that would be representative of a level service app. So unlike school grade systems, we do use a level service E, and that's generally considered the limit of acceptability. So this is where I like to explain something about traffic engineering. And like I said, I'm confident that commissioners in Branford have heard many traffic engineer testify. A lot of times I hear feedback like, oh, you're a traffic engineer. It's a lot of voodoo what you guys do. I don't think so. I think traffic engineering is like any other engineering system that we analyze. So if I was here testifying and telling you, hey, I've got a sewer pipe, it's a certain diameter, it's a certain slope, and it's made of a certain material, so therefore it has a certain capacity to handle flows, I think you'd all be like, that makes sense. Well, traffic engineering is the same way. That's why we build these models, because what we're really doing at the end of the day is looking at the intersection capacity and then looking at the service demand of how many vehicles are trying to get through it. And it's, again, a roadway network is very similar to a pipe network. For example, lane configuration. That's why we put these things in the model. The more lanes you have approaching an intersection, the more capacity you're going to have, the better operation you're going to have, et cetera. So next slide is we get right to the analyses. So again, for our 8 study intersections, we looked at the what we determined to be the overall level of service under existing, no build and build conditions for the AM peak periods, the PM peak periods, and a Saturday midday. And what I can tell you for certain, out of those 24 cases that we looked at, going from a no build to a build condition with our new site traffic, there's absolutely no impact to these intersections with our new site traffic, with one exception. That one exception, and I don't know if we can zoom in, Dennis, and that would be the intersection of Route 1 and Route 142, where in one of our peak periods, we do go from a D in the no build scenario to a level service E in the build scenario. And that's quite simply just a function of the intersection presently operating at what we call a very bad B, putting a little bit of traffic through it and getting to a very good E, if you will. So I don't know, Dennis, maybe if you could zoom in, because what I'd like to talk about are the 3 intersections closest to our project. And if you don't have the ability to...
I don't think I have the ability to zoom in.
Okay, well, that's
I'm not
okay,
that
too.
proficient in PowerPoint if I can.
Not a problem. What I wanted to point out here is that what we found in doing the level service analyses is that we also had a slight impact on the intersection to the north of Route 1 at Main Street. And that is in the Saturday midday, from no build to a build, it went from a C to a level service D. But what we found is by proposing an off-site improvement ourselves to Route 1 at Commercial Parkway, 2 things happen. Number one, we bring the overall level service at Main Street, Route 146, back to a level service C. So we demonstrate we have no impact. And then we also improve level service operation at Commercial Parkway from our no build to our build scenario. And that offsite improvement is the creation of a right turn lane southbound onto Commercial Parkway. So if you go to the next slide, please, Dennis. So you are proficient at this, sir. Okay, so what we're looking at is a graphic of offsite improvements. The portion in red is actually the development across from Commercial Parkway that I've been mentioning, 1151 West Main Street. That is their proposed site plan. You can also see what they're proposing for improvements in red. So as you move northbound on Route 1, they're proposing a right turn slip lane into their site and also carrying that pavement widening through across the intersection to the north. They're also proposing to slightly extend the left turn lane into their site, correct? And what you see in green on the Commercial Parkway side of Route 1 are the improvements that we are proposing, which is widening from the 146 intersection so that we can, have an exclusive right turn lane onto Commercial Parkway ourselves. And again, with that improvement, we more than mitigate our traffic impact and in fact make the operation of Commercial Parkway even better. So with that, the next slide, and I'll start to wrap up here, is our recommendations. Again, it is to widen US Route 1 to include the exclusive southbound right turn lane onto Commercial Parkway. Along Commercial Parkway at our site frontage, at our site driveways, is clearing of vegetation, grading, etc., necessary just to achieve the suggested intersection sight lines. And as standard, the installation of painted stop bars and stop signs at our site driveways onto Commercial Parkway. As a final statement, what I really want to say is these recommendations and with the improvements, the adjacent roadway network here by Commercial Parkway will have no adverse impact by this project. The roadway provides safe and efficient access to and from the site. We are in receipt of comments dated February 4th from your traffic peer reviewer, Stephen Ullman of Alfred Benish and Company. As Attorney Nuff mentioned, we had submitted some initial data immediately back on February 7th in a formal traffic addendum that was submitted today as well. And lastly, I want the commission to know, you have the traffic expertise of BL companies, myself, 28 years working in collaboration with them, your own peer reviewer, Steve Ullman, as well as the fact that we have to submit for a major traffic generator certificate to OSTA and an encroachment permit to DOT. So you have several levels of traffic experts to make sure that our findings are correct and there are no adverse impacts by this project. So with that, I will turn it back to Attorney Nuff for some final remarks. And of course, we're all available for questions.
Thanks, Rob. Great job to you and to all the other presenters. Mr. Chairman, I think we did pretty well, slightly over an hour in terms of making the presentation. I'm sure that the commission has lots of questions that we'd be happy to answer. If you want to hear from your staff or you want to take some initial commission questions, we'd be happy to proceed in whatever manner you deem the most appropriate.
Chuck Chair, thank you, Mr. Nuff. First, I got a couple of things. You did make there were a number of graphics that were submitted. I don't believe I think we're seeing them for the first time tonight. So I would ask that you make those, provide copies of those to the staff and so that we could have them available for viewing for anyone. And also for Harry and Evan, I understand, is there a Dropbox where we're keeping everything that if people wanted to actually do that, we can make that available? Harry or Evan?
Harry Smith, Town Planner. I believe we are doing that. If we don't have everything in there, we will ensure that it does get in there as soon as we receive some of these documents that, for example, the PDFs. Okay, great.
Also, I noticed there was lots of chat going on while the presentation was going on. In a normal public hearing, again, we're in a remote world, but normally we don't allow people to interrupt others while they're speaking. My strong suggestion is that you keep your comments, you make your comments. We will have a public portion. You will be allowed to say whatever you like. You can send emails to the commission as well. As I said earlier, I expect we're not going to close this public hearing. We're hearing a lot of new information, both the commission for the first time and the staff. So I encourage you to do that. But I think it's to be fair to everyone that you don't start just making general comments on the chat. Instead, you say them when it's your turn or you submit them through an email I think that would be the most appropriate. With that, we will turn it over to commission members and staff. I would ask Harry and Evan, first we'll start with the staff report, and one last thing. I know people have their hands raised. I see 2 people have their hand raised, and that's great. When we have our public portion, you will be allowed to be recognized and you can speak, whatever. But at this point, as I said at the beginning, applicant goes first, then we hear from the commission, and the commission members have questions, and hear from the staff report, and then we'll open up to the public. So just so everyone's clear on that. So with that, Harry and Evan, who wants to present the staff report?
Evan Brining, Assistant Town Planner. I prepared the preliminary staff report for this application. The applicant described their business plan and their proposals to the site. They meet the bulk requirements of the BLHR district, with the exception of the height restriction, for which they got a variance late last year. They have a non-conforming impervious surface that existing is at 85.41%. They propose to reduce that to 82.66%. The applicant has provided a landscaping plan. This plan does not include any existing significant trees. However, the plan does include a note that all significant trees within the limits of disturbance will be removed. They do not satisfy the front yard landscaping requirements, and they potentially do not satisfy the side and rear lot landscaping requirements. I believe they propose a mixture of grasses on those side yards as well as in the rear. Typically, the commission has not allowed applicants to use grass to satisfy these requirements in the past, at least. They do satisfy the planting bed requirements as well as the parking area landscaping requirements. They also satisfy the bicycle and motor vehicle parking space requirements. The applicant is proposing a zoning text amendment to the BLHR to add the BLHR district to the table in section 6.6E.
Excuse me, Evan, let's hold on that till we have that sort of separate public hearing, if you don't mind.
You got it.
We're going to do after. Thank you.
The freestanding incidental signs with commercial messages included on sheet DN2 are listed in our prohibited sign section, and therefore those signs are prohibited. However, the applicant has indicated that they will remove the commercial logos from these signs. The applicant has provided a lighting plan. They satisfy the light trespass requirement. However, they do not satisfy the overlighting requirement from section 6.7C. The statistic table on sheet LL0 indicates that the launch pad canopy area has a max illuminance level proposed at 10.9. The max illuminance level allowed in this area is 8. They do not propose any uplighting, and to promote energy conservation, all non-essential exterior lighting shall be required to be turned off after business hours, leaving only lighting deemed essential for building security. The applicant has indicated that they will be lowering some lights. However, they also indicated that this is a 24-hour operation. So staff would like some more information about which lighting in particular will be lowered and which lighting will be kept on 24 hours a day. The applicant satisfies the requirements from section 6.8, and the applicant has also satisfied the requirements from section 6.9. There is also comments prepared by the town engineer in which he states this. Section 6.12 deals with driveways, And it looks like the applicant proposes some trees and other plantings to be within the site triangles for all of the exits that they propose. The applicant also has indicated that they would move some of these trees on their next revision. Section 613C, this concerns fences and retaining walls. All retaining walls shall be set back a minimum of 6 feet from any parking space and a distance at least equal to the height of the wall from all property lines. The applicant has indicated that one wall in particular will be adjusted to meet this requirement. They satisfy the remainder of that section's requirements, with the exception of guardrails or railings were not indicated on the details for the retaining wall, as well as the landscaping at the top and bottom of the walls, as well as the terraced sections. They did not indicate that there would be any landscaping in there. Section 614D, townwide design standards, newly installed utility services. They are proposing to place these underground. And landscape and site treatment. Pedestrian walkways should provide safe and convenient connections within the site and between adjacent sites, as shall be conducted of all weather materials. The applicant satisfies this requirement. And pedestrian facilities from section 615D, sidewalks shall be required on all major roadways and other locations, and in other locations with high pedestrian and or vehicle traffic. The applicant does not satisfy this requirement. And staff would like to request that sidewalks be provided with this project. And that is the staff report, the preliminary staff report.
Chuck Anders, Chair. Thank you, Evan. May have some follow-up to that. But Harry and Evan, we also had an independent expert review the traffic issue. Do we have a presentation from that person that are this evening, or where are we on that?
Harry Smith, Town Planner, I believe we do. Mr. Ullman is with us and has just unmuted himself. So, and I believe he has the ability to share his screen if he so chose.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Steve Ullman, U-L-M-A-N. I'm with Alfred Benish and Company. I was requested by the town, hired by the town to do a peer review of the traffic study as it currently stands. For a brief background, I've been a traffic engineer for 35 years plus, working for Purcell and for now Alfred Benish and Company. I've designed hundreds of traffic signals and done hundreds of traffic impact studies. My task here was to review the study to ensure that it was done in accordance with normal procedures and normal methodologies that we do here in the state of Connecticut, and to do a check of the correctness of it, if you will. To form this study, we looked at the traffic impact study dated November 21st by BL Companies, and the land development plans dated November 16th by BL Companies. As you've been informed, the building's footprint will be 97,950 square feet, plus or minus. There'll be a 6,800 square foot mezzanine for a total of 104,837 square feet of building space. There will be 213 spaces, parking spaces on the site with 9 loading docks. Access to the site will be through 4 driveways along Commercial Parkway. We reviewed the access network, the intersection studied. As was described, they studied from the west Short Beach Road all the way to Cedar Street in the east along Route 1 and the 2 intersections of I-91 ramps to Cedar Street. This is an appropriate, reasonable area to study for this development. The existing volumes, as was described, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, traffic counts were not done for this development as normally would be done. Too many changes in the temporary shifts by people working from home and just not doing the same things we used to do. Traffic counts have been very low for the past couple of years. They used the 2017 Branford Connector Corridor Study prepared by SCROG, and then they developed 2021 traffic volumes from that. In order to go from 2017 to 2021, they grew the traffic by 0.8% per year for the 4 years. They coordinated that with the Connecticut Bureau of Planning and Policy and Planning, and that is the established way of dealing with COVID at this point. Sight lines, as noted, they are able to obtain a 335-foot sight line from each of the drives along Commercial Parkway. In order to obtain this 335-foot distance, which is what is required for 30 miles an hour, they need to clear shrubbery and brushes along their site frontage. I would suggest that the requirement that this vegetation maintenance be done on a regular basis be part of the conditions of approval. Crash analysis, they studied crash data from January 1, 2018 through December 31st, 2020 in the study area. The crashes during 2020 may have been a little bit low, but regardless of that, the crash patterns that we see out there do not indicate that any geometric or other improvements are required.
Sorry, could you say that again? Sorry.
The no-build traffic volumes, they calculated the 22 no-build traffic volumes by expanding the 2021 volumes by the 0.8% per year growth factor. And then they added on the Vox Church volumes and the volumes from 1151 West Main Street. This is an appropriate approach to creating the no-build volumes. I had concerns initially about the trip generation that was done by using numbers that were generated by the tenant and not using the ITE. Yes, their numbers are higher than the ITE numbers from the ITE trip generation 10. They're also higher from the different land uses from the 11th edition as well. However, I think the developer, while they kind of talked about it tonight, and they didn't really describe it in the traffic study, I believe that the commission needs to receive from the developer an in-depth description of how they obtained and generated these trips. As was described to me and staff at our February 10th meeting, they use an algorithm that is almost like a gravity model, if you will. They determine what area they're going to serve, how many customers are there. I believe the phrase they use is how many rooftops they count to deliveries. They determine how much staff and vehicle traffic is necessary to service that area. And then they work their schedules around on the site for the warehouse to come up with those numbers and work. Now, they've made a corporate decision that they do not want staff or vehicles on the road during the peak hours. This makes absolute sense. It's not economical for them to have their vans stuck in rush hour traffic. However, as I said, I think the developer should provide a more detailed description of how they came up with this trip generation number and their plans for the business. You need that just for your record. I don't have an issue with their trip distribution. I think it's appropriate and reasonable for this development. Capacity analyses, as were noted, were done using the Synchro 11 software according to the Highway Capacity Manual. However, during the review of the initial traffic report, I noted significant errors in the traffic flow diagrams creating the 2022 no-build volumes. We notified them of this at the February 10th meeting. If the 2020 no-build volumes are not valid, or I have questions about it, I can't really review the no-build or the build analyses. We did not receive, at the time of the writing of this, I had not received the updated traffic report, so I did not review their capacity analyses as of yet. Off-site improvements. The developers proposed 2 specific off-site improvements. So I'm talking off-site here. I'm talking along Route 1, the state highway system and the off-site intersections. One is they're recommending to the Connecticut Department of Transportation to review and adjust the signal timings along Route 1 and Cedar Street in the vicinity of the site. I would strongly suggest that they make an effort to vocalize that during the OSTA process. Secondly, they propose adding that a right turn lane from Route 1 onto Commercial Parkway, southbound Route 1 onto Commercial Parkway. Adding this proposed right turn lane will improve the level of service at the intersection of Commercial Parkway and Route 1. However, I have very serious safety concerns with the impact to the Starbucks right turn exit onto Route 1. If I could share my screen so I can point to it. I think this is it. There, can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
This is the exhibit that they showed showing the 1151 retail development, the Aldi's. And here, can you see my hand moving, the cursor?
Harry Smith Town Planner, yes, we can.
Okay, good. It's very confusing if you can't. This is where they're proposing to put the right turn lane in southbound Route 1 onto Commercial Parkway. Right here is a right turn exit only from Starbucks. There's an entrance into Starbucks and an exit from Starbucks here. You can exit Starbucks going through Chipotle onto Commercial Parkway. Currently, if someone is exiting Starbucks, they enter into the rightmost lane on Route 1. That rightmost lane continues through the intersection and becomes a right turn only lane onto the connector. If they want to go to points west on Route 1, they have to do a lane shift someplace between where they enter Route 1, one lane over, in order to get onto Route 1. They have to get out of that right lane because that's going to end up putting them on the connector to get one lane over onto Route 1. If this right turn lane is constructed, people exiting Starbucks are now in the right turn lane, and if they don't move, they're going to end up on Commercial Parkway. They must move one lane over if they want to go over onto the connector, and need to make 2 weaves, 2 lane changes to get onto Route 1 westbound. I believe this poses a significant safety risk for those people exiting Starbucks, especially those who want to go west on Route 1. And my recommendation, as opposed to the developer, is I don't believe the improvement of level of service at the intersection warrants the safety issues that are raised with this driveway. That's my opinion. I've dealt with a number of right turn exits in areas such as this, And I've even had them denied by the OSTA on Route 1 in Stamford for a supermarket. Obviously, this is something that needs to be reviewed by the OSTA. The OSTA will be the final arbiter of what happens on Route 1. But this is something I think the commission needs to consider for this development. I also reviewed the site circulation. Generally, the layout of the site provides adequate maneuverability for vehicles on the site who wish to park. However, I do have 2 points of concern. Here we are at the associate parking area. The lockers are here. People who wish to get to the lockers need to enter the site off of here, travel through here, find a place to park, and back out and try and go back this way. The other issue is right here is where they've located the ride share, almost like a bus stop, shelter. If someone wants to pick someone up at the ride share or drop someone off at actually pick them up and they're at the shelter, you have to enter the site here, come around, enter the parking field, and drive all the way to the western side and either go down one of these aisles to get to the shelter. My concern with that is that people are going to tend to make an illegal U-turn or K-turn in this area. I don't have a perfect solution. I'm thinking maybe an internal drive aisle someplace in the parking field might be appropriate. It's just for your consideration. Those are the 2 things I noted on the site plan. And as I said, I just received their traffic study, the revised traffic study this afternoon, and I will have to review that after tonight. And I'm here for any questions.
Chuck Andrews here. Thank you, Mr. Ullman. So obviously you want to review their revisions.
Yes.
I assume they mentioned that one drop of a level of service, I think the left turn onto Short Beach Road would be going to, it looked like it was going to F, I thought. Or there was one, or was that it? Or maybe I'm wrong. I didn't.
Harry Smith, town planner, believe it was D to E, or a bad D to a good E, if I remember correctly, was how it was categorized.
Okay. I just thought to look at that. I guess the suggestion, the question is, and I suppose I don't know the answer, that is there anything additional that you would suggest to ameliorate any impacts? Yeah, I mean, they came, and I don't know what you can do because we know the situation. You've got whatever, 4 lights within a quarter of a mile. It's just so difficult.
And this is Route 1. Typically along Route 1 in its very congested areas, this section of Branford, of course, you have the entire Orange through Milford corridor. You have down in Fairfield and Westport, Norwalk. It's very typical to see levels of service severe D, light E's at signalized intersections along Route 1. There's typically not a lot a developer can do to fix them. It's usually way more expensive than they can hope to do for one single development, unless you're putting in a 400,000 square foot retail center. It's usually beyond the scope of their project. They have talked about improved signal timings and just coordination along the corridor. This is on state coordinated systems. I think they should petition through the OSTA process, and I'm sure the town's legal traffic authority can discuss with the department that the department needs to study this and look at it and see if there's anything they can do. In terms of actual improvements, I'm not aware of anything they can do down at Short Beach. At this intersection, they might be able to construct a second turn lane, left turn lane off of the Commercial Parkway onto Route 1. Don't know if there's sufficient right of way and who owns the land that would do it. Looking at this sketch, there does not appear to be any right of way to be able to construct that left turn lane. Those are really, I mean, that's one of the reasons why Route 1 is so difficult. There, all the developments in the past as it's been developed, all available right of way has been eaten up with prior improvements.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, one question, I think you both agreed that it was appropriate to use the 2017 background because of the difficulties with COVID.
Correct.
Do you know when those counts were made, what time of year? I don't know if they know. I mean, someone knows, I think, but
I think I did, but I don't recall.
Sure. Okay, we'll find that out. Maybe they can find that. Okay. Let's open it up then to Harry.
Harry Smith, Town Planner. I don't want to take a lot more time. I just wanted to add a couple pieces of information in about sidewalks. So I'll share my screen for a couple of seconds and just show the commission and the audience a couple of things. So you should be able to see my screen. I just want to highlight that the regulations refer to the areas as sort of recommended in the plan of conservation development as priority areas for sidewalk installation as developments come into the commission for review. The town center areas, priority 1 area, priority 2 areas include large portions of Route 1 and some nodes along the shore, but also all the properties extending along Commercial Parkway. And there is a piece of sidewalk. I will have to do this to swap out. Currently, you can see a part of it here at the long Walmart. The frontage of that continues all the way up the Walmart property frontage. I also note, I think it might have been alluded to about, I think it was Mr. Daniels mentioned something about transit stops, and there is a bus stop right here in the State DOT Park and Ride facility. So there is the possibility of folks stopping here wanting to go up to the Amazon facility where they could either work inside the building or they could be a van driver and get into their vehicle and do that. I think having a sidewalk along this side, along the frontage of the development is something that seems to be recommended by the Plan of Conservation Development. It's certainly completely up to the commission, but would also facilitate folks using the bus stop and public transit. I mean, there of course is this intervening area here that's sort of used currently by the DOT as sort of a construction laydown area. I think that it's probably a legacy from the bridge project, some other projects. The applicant's property starts here and goes up to the north. So I just wanted to highlight that for the commission. Thank you.
Check in to share. Thank you, Harry. Harry, is there anything else you wanted to highlight before we?
I think you mentioned getting copies of PDFs. The only other thing I'll mention is that the BL hybrid rear zone does also include 2 properties to the north that are not part of this application. So it's not just the properties subject to the application. And I think everything else was covered by Evan. So I think that's all I've got at the moment.
Okay,
thank you.
Great. Okay, then what we'll do, I got a few questions and probably other commission members have some questions too. Just questions for the applicant. Does the applicant have an estimate as to what territories would be served by this site? I assume you did. You had to do some trip distribution, so you had to figure out where they're going, but do you have an approximate for that?
I can speak to that one. So we do when we're deciding on site selection and things, think about where the demand is. And for this site, coverage generally is going to be Branford, North Branford, East Haven, and Guilford.
Great. One of the things you mentioned was flex workers, and it sounded like a comparison to Uber. That's something I wasn't aware of. Can you discuss that a little bit further?
Sure. So the flex program happens in the afternoon when the site's otherwise largely quiet. These are individuals who, like Uber or Lyft drivers, have an Amazon Flex app on their phone, and they arrive to the site during that hour and a half period in their personal vehicles. Their car will be loaded, their personal vehicle will be loaded in the same way the van is, with the assistance of an Amazon associate, and then we'll depart the site with the packages and drop them off to customers. In the case of Amazon Flex, they're not going to return to the site in their personal vehicle once they're done.
Oh, okay. So just Chuck Anders here. So it would be the employees using their personal vehicles for distributions as well as sort of a separate deal.
Correct. These are not Amazon employees. The Amazon.
Okay. Okay. And I assume that was accounted for in the traffic distribution and in the, I know that was one of the questions from our expert to get a better, amplification of how you came up with the traffic on and off the site. But so hopefully that when you do that, you can maybe include that, I assume. Okay. And perhaps the question I asked our own expert: when was the 2017 traffic counts? I don't know if Mr. I'm going to mask it, Rob. If Rob knows that, I'm missing his last name. I want to, Mr. Bowes Major.
I'll stop you right there, Mr. Chairman. It's
right.
Fulfillitis, but Rob is fine as well.
Right.
So we're going to get you that information. I like Mr. Ullman, I also think I knew, but don't know right now. So we'll get you the answer on that when those counts are.
Great. Okay. Let's open it up to other members of the commission with questions. Other members of the commission have questions at this time. Sharon is raising her hand. You're on mute, but I think you can unmute yourself.
Okay, hi, this is Sharon Hutner. I was very happy to hear about Amazon environmental goals at the beginning of the presentation, but when I look through the plans, I don't see anything specific related to them. So for example, on the page where they have all the illustrations of the signs that they're going to use on the site, there's no graphic for electric vehicle charging station parking spots. So I was wondering what they were going to do about that. And also in their even in their own yearly statement, they talk about having almost 90% of their fulfillment centers having solar canopies that contribute to their cost of electricity. But I also don't see anything in the plans about that. And the canopy where the trucks are all lodged would be a perfect place for a solar canopy. So I was just wondering about that.
Yeah, let me speak to that one also. As I mentioned, there is a system-wide goal of 10,000 electric vans within the next year and 100,000 by 2030. At this site, we're going to be putting in the conduit and pull boxes in the van parking lot. We're not putting in the EV chargers just yet. We call this EV ready. And the reason we're doing that is You know, when we started this goal of switching to electric vans, there was no manufacturer at a large scale in North America who could produce this volume of electric vans in time for when we needed them. So we've partnered with Rivian to create that supply, and that is in production now. And this site will be set up to put in those chargers as soon as those vans are available. So as soon as they're available, they will go in, the EV chargers will be put in, and the site will utilize EV vans. So, and then go ahead.
Oh, I mean, that's good news. So I'm glad that it's going to be EV ready. What about solar?
Yeah, so solar, so, you know, as I mentioned at the outset, this is not a fulfillment center. Our fulfillment centers are much, much larger facilities. This is a delivery station, which is, you know, maybe a tenth of the size of a typical fulfillment center. And the way we evaluate solar is we have about 1,000 buildings in our portfolio, many of which have come on in the last, you know, 18 or 24 months or so. And we have an internal team that's looking at each building in the portfolio to see where it makes sense to allocate our resources for on-site solar. And, you know, as you can imagine, it's a bit of a process to look at each of these, and we're currently evaluating them so that we can, you know, put our resources where they'll have the biggest impact to reaching those goals that I talked about at the beginning. Then there's also the practical aspect of the building itself and the surrounding infrastructure. So once we have the real estate transaction in place, various approvals and entitlements we need from the jurisdiction, we'll work with the local utility, our internal on-site solar team, and the municipality to evaluate if it makes sense at this site to utilize solar. So, you know, we're going through this process on hundreds, if not thousands of buildings at the moment. And so can't make that commitment up front here, but it's something we'll look at in due time.
I appreciate the answer, but I would think it would be much easier to plan for solar before you do the construction than after. And Branford is a town that's committed to energy efficiency. So I hope that you would take that into consideration.
Chuck Anders here. Thank you, Sharon. Other members of the commission have questions or comments for the applicant at this time? Hearing none, then we can open it up to the public. Then why don't we, Evan, why don't you run through the rules again for participating for members of the public to comment?
Sure. I'd like to ask that everybody announce their name at the beginning of their comment or at the beginning of their question. You can, down at the bottom of your screen, there is the reactions button. There's a smiley face right above it. Right in that menu, you can use the raise your hand function. Please indicate that way that you would like to comment. You can also indicate in the chat that you'd like to comment as well. It looks like we had a significant number of questions asked in the chat, so I would like to ask that everybody who is positing questions in the chat, if you would like to speak up during this public comment. But first up, we will start with Maggie.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Margaret Wheeler, and I live in Short Beach, 111 Clark Avenue. And Evan probably saw me at City Hall the other day looking at the traffic report for a few hours, where I went back and tried to find more to see if the peer review was in, and it wasn't. But I am appreciative of Steve Ullman for his critical analysis. I also have more questions on that. But I want to thank the Planning and Zoning Commission for their I know volunteer work. I have a master's degree in environmental science and another in science education. And I served on the zoning board in Short Beach, and I'm part of the Short Beach Environmental and Conservation Group. So now that I'm retired from teaching high school and college, I have an opportunity to spend my time doing the things I didn't have time to do. And that's hoping that we make Branford a community that is safe, environmentally, and with public health issues being addressed constantly. So I know that's the concern of all of you too. So what I wanted to do is to ask you to not vote for zoning changes yet until the public has a chance to review not only the traffic report, but to get the questions that some of the people have been asking prior to this. It's really important that we don't jump into something, because an e-commerce site carries a large responsibility to the community. And this is the first one in town. It's a big, and in terms of public health and environmental effects, we have to be very careful, slow down, give us a chance to review, look up various guidelines, and make sure that we create ordinances and regulations and potential penalties for what is said and what isn't said. And that's really important so that we can, again, think about all the things we said tonight. So let's say, for example, during the traffic study, and I'm so grateful that you focused on 142, but I was looking at the study very carefully. And one of the big questions that wasn't addressed is, what are the total number of trips coming off the highway and onto the highway every day? I think the number is 1,238 trips. Then the question says on the map on page 22, figure 4 of the traffic study, that 15% of those traffic trips are going down 142. So I just want to know about what number that is and what increase in that, what particular increase that would be percentage-wise from the no build, and considering summer, people brought that up, great point, summertime, a lot more traffic here in the area. Another concern that I found doing lots of research on Amazon sites was that Amazon is ramping up their cargo freight with airports. And I'm very concerned about the Amazon freight cargo prime jets coming into Tweed and then having a direct shot down to the last mile site. There's evidence in other parts of the country that's what's going on. These 737 and 767 cargo freights are large, large planes, along with what's going on right now at Tweed. We're starting to see an impact on the shoreline with noise and flight path changes. There's quite a few people concerned and beginning to hear and see that. So we'd like to make sure maybe in an ordinance or something that we can do that this particular site does not have a direct connection to Tweed, and that we are not, and also, I mean, just to bring that up, if you think that's just something I'm making up, we're dealing with the South Central Regional Board of what do you call them, the SCROGs, whatever. They have that ramped up in their report in 2014 of turning Tweed into a major cargo freight, which means all night flights, along with the noise that's being generated from the all night cargo on the highway. I mean, I can hear when the highway is revving up in the morning, you know, around 5:30 from all the way here on the shoreline. I'm directly on Clark Avenue, so by the beach, so I can hear it. So imagine what everybody's going to feel like near there. So I just want you to know that they're putting $1.5 billion into these prime jets around the country. And so again, air quality suffers anywhere near Amazon sites. It's been proven around the country. I hear about them hiring consultants and these, like, what was the word that you used before, flex individuals. There's no guarantee that those flex individuals are going to have electric vehicles. Again, anytime I look at an impervious surface and runoff, I know that right now that the commercial parkway parking lot area that's up there has been vacant for years, lots of cracks, lots of grass. There isn't any vehicles on there. So the runoff is, you know, you say it's going to improve, but remember when you have drips of oil and gasoline, and where are there going to be gasoline? Is there going to be gasoline sites on the site where we have to be concerned with storage and leaking and oil changes and mechanical possibilities there? And if so, I mean, I really want to know. You mentioned something that a certain in the stormwater drain runoff, there was a mention that some of that runoff will be going into the main system. And I want to know what percent of that runoff is going into the main system. And you mentioned that some of it's going into the wetlands. Well, you know, natural wetlands, I have them here and I'm passionate about wildlife. And I feel like, you know, if you're letting runoff go into a wetland and it has oils and antifreeze and gasoline leaks, that is going to be, you know, we've seen areas die from that. So that's something to consider. Air quality is important. You've got your particulate matters, you've got your CO2, you know, which is your greenhouse gases, ozone. You're not too far from a school. I would like to see an air monitoring device near the site, and give them, give the Amazon people time or a condition that they have to improve their sustainability in terms of emissions and at a certain potential over period of time, so that we can make sure that they're living to some particular standard that they say. When they were talking about sustainability on that slide, and I saw, you know, all the what they said about, you know, making it more electric vehicles, et cetera, they failed to mention that this is not is this a global number, United States number, or on the site number? And I'd like them to go back over that slide and give us specifics. Take those numbers that you have on that slide that can be misinterpreted into being global or national, and turn them into what you think is local. Like the presenter, the commission, who was, I forgot her name before this, said, there's no reason why you can't have solar panels on the top of those building. There's no reason. As a matter of fact, I think that site would be much better as a solar field than what you're proposing to do here. And so, hold on, to reaching net zero by 2040, that's what Amazon pledges, to be net zero carbon emissions by 2040. How is that going to be achieved if you're hiring these flex people who are coming in their own vehicles every day? Hold on a second, there's a lot more here. So measuring air quality, NO2, SO2, ozone, 2.5 and 10 particulate matter, and greenhouse gases. Now in Western Massachusetts, they have an Amazon site there that's a last mile site. And the local commission asked them to make some concessions. And of course, one of them is opaque shields, which will be installed to reduce the glare into the neighborhoods. I'm kind of concerned about the Matoya complex next door people. Those poor people, hopefully the loading docks will be on the opposite side, on the 794 connector side, not on the side where the sound is going to get over to them. They should redesign that completely. And they also, what they did was they made sure that in this Massachusetts Amazon site, that drivers would not be allowed to turn down certain roads. Now, that is important. So for example, if you see that 142, except for small deliveries, I understand. I'd like to compare the 142 delivery percentage to 146, just to see, is this just disproportionate? Because if Tweed builds their, the biggest thing here is important to understand. Once you open Pandora's box, we don't know what's going to happen. But if in 142 is a straight shot to the new potential terminal at Tweed, and once we allow that to happen, and they go down there and go straight to the plains and start, and this could happen, 10 years from now, it doesn't matter. We're preparing for the future. We're critical thinkers here. We're making sure that we, your board is our intelligent people that want to make sure we do the best for Branford. Branford is a wonderful coastal town. We pride ourselves in making sure that we are resilient to climate change and are working to be sustainable. So noise is another thing that they talked about in this Massachusetts town planning on they said that they planted trees, $35,000 worth of trees or more. I'd like to see, I noticed, I was grateful to hear Evan talk about that they were very analytical and looking at the landscaping, and I'm appreciated to Steve. And all of you are there to look at the details, which I think can be easily missed. And I'd like to see if those trees are all native, because I'm really much involved in that process, and the recommendations made. So if residential roads are going to be restricted, how is everything going to be enforced? What are penalties in place for a facility like this? For example, when you're dealing with noise ordinances around an airport, there's noise ordinances 7 to 10 and things. This is a 24/7 facility. So we're dealing with something that's very new to the area. And I'm concerned about the light pollution with the wildlife and the, especially the glare and all that going into the wetlands behind there. So we're talking about noise walls. Where are we now? No. Okay, so now in another part of the country, they were doing Amazon last mile, and they made specific restrictions into when there are called no truck trips. No trips allowed between 6 and 8 a.m. and 4 and 6 p.m. And we know what Branford Hill is like. When you're trying to get out of anywhere onto Branford Hill during rush hour in the morning. Now I know they said over here that they have the peak hour is going to be a.m. Basically in this particular planning in this town, there's 0 moving in and out during those peak hours. We should actually make sure that they do that. Now, Saturday afternoon, midday, believe me, I have numbers all over the place. I'm trying to get these all out here so I don't get confused. But Saturday peak, they have 109. Well, why does it have to be 109 trucks coming in and out at Saturday peak at midday when you have all these? Well, why can't we make an ordinance like these other towns have done that says, no, you can't do that. You can't have these particular things going out at Saturday peak or during working hour people rush hours, okay? So that's something that we can do. So that's been done in other parts of the country. So that's one part there. Climate policy changes. Now we know that we're trying to be, we hear everything about the government trying to prepare for climate changes and global warming, and black asphalt, you know, in itself radiates, and I teach this to my kids in school. I mean, we're going to be examples of what we teach. When you have black asphalt, you cause, you know, as you know, you can't walk on black asphalt in the heat. That radiant heat will then radiate back and form a blanket along with the CO2 emissions there. So what can we do? What kind of technology or something that we can ask them to do to stop the black top and maybe less impervious surfaces as we move along, and to catch the runoff and emission coming from the cars before they get into Long Island Sound through the storm drains. I'm involved in researching and measuring Long Island Sound. It's now a NOAA protected estuary. So we have, and that all that water goes from all these, you know, various storm drains go right into Long Island Sound. So we have to be very careful about that. And let me see, I think that's the majority. I do have some questions from the notes from tonight. Let me go back there, and I think I addressed most of them. So again, I want to know the total trips for the day, going in and going out, because it's a little bit confusing in some of the reports. I know in the traffic circles, they'll say 15% down 142 and 15% coming back on 42. How many trees will be planted? I want to know exactly that. What percent of the runoff will go into existing systems? They use the word existing systems. Okay, how are they going to lessen the noise that goes to the homes nearby? I know I'm going to find something tomorrow and be upset that I didn't do it. But I can add these questions to the, and this sounds like a crazy, oh yes, here's a big one. When I was bringing up in the zoning in Short Beach, talking to the engineers for property that was being built, one of the things they did not mention, and we know that some of the rain, we have these really hard rains, 3 inches in an hour, sometimes 6 inches. So the storm studies that they used in the past, like for example, these storm containment units that they have around the site have a capacity for a certain amount of rain. I want to know what that is. What is the inches per hour, per day, whatever, and how is that falling into the climate change that's going on right now? Or are they using past existing numbers? Because once they overflow, then we're dealing with runoff going out. And I really do feel if they're going to cut down trees along, you know, of course you need sight lines, but to leave the trees up along 194, there's a lot of beautiful eastern red cedar natives there. And is there any way that we can measure the runoff coming off the site? There you go. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler. Evan, who's next?
Next up is Daniel.
Hi, my name is Daniel Rabin. I've lived in Short Beach for 37 years on 21st Stone Street, and I appreciate both the representatives from Amazon and the Planning and Zoning Commission for giving the public an opportunity. There were two previous comments about the sustainability goals, and I think they're wonderful. I'm an Amazon customer. I use Prime. I get deliveries, and I also have a nephew who works in the Bay Area. He worked on the Echo and Dot project. So I think Amazon's a great company. The sustainability goals are wonderful. They are consistent with the Connecticut goals and with the goals for the town of Branford that were accepted last year. When I looked at the plans and saw tonight's presentation, I was a little bit shocked because there's essentially nothing in the plans that contribute to the sustainability goals. I understand perfectly, okay, maybe the electric vehicles, the vans aren't delivered yet, whatever, and that they'll be ready. I share Sharon Hutner's concern about lack of solar, but I'd like to bring up one other thing, and that is that the HVAC system, I think everything we've heard, we expect a completely conventional gas, some sort of a gas system to go in there. And that system will be, I'm sure, state of the art, and it will be emitting carbon dioxide for the next 20 or 30 years. When the building is built, it should be fitted with either air source or geothermal heat pumps that use current excellent technology that will not only have a positive environmental impact, but will also save the company money. So I understand fully that Amazon wants to use the same design that's been going in for, what was the number, 1,000 different facilities. I understand that, but the times are changing. It's time to put the technology that's available now into the buildings that are being constructed now. So I have to say, with looking at the sustainability goals, I was very disappointed with what Amazon has presented so far. So thank you very much for the opportunity to comment.
Chuck Anderson, thank you, Mr. Raven. Yeah, Evan, who's next?
Next up is Kate. But before Kate starts, I would like to just reiterate that if you would like to participate, please indicate using the raise your hand function in the reactions menu. Kate, I lost you. I'm sorry. Could you raise your hand again? There she is. Okay. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, thank you. Hi.
Hi,
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. I am not in opposition to this development, but I did have questions in particular on the traffic study, which I did read. For anybody who is listening, you can access the traffic study on the Dropbox on the Town Hall website. And I do apologize that I didn't read any of the peer review documents, but I did hear Mr. Ullman speak, so some of my questions have been addressed. But in particular, I had a couple of points, and one is in regard to the peak hour trip generation table 2, which I kind of feel is not very helpful for us, because in table 2, many of the fields in the table have zeros. So we're not getting much information on peak hour traffic because, as the report states, most of the traffic will occur outside of peak hours. So we don't get much information from table 2. I think it would be very helpful to have a 24-hour impact study done. We've already heard that employees, it's a 24/7 operation. I believe employees will probably be arriving maybe at 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning, and so forth. And I have trouble corresponding the table 2 with the amount of parking that's being requested. Unless I misunderstand it, they're requesting 213 parking spaces for employees, 542 delivery van spaces. That's an awful lot of delivery vans. And of course, the 9 truck loading stalls. And now we understand also that there will be flex drivers. So that's an additional set of vehicles that have not been accounted for in the count that was explained in the project narrative. So how many flex vehicles would be added to the trip generation? So that's one question that I have in regard to trip generation. I really think that we need a 24-hour count, not a peak hour count. Also, in regard to roadway adequacy numbers, and I forgot to say my name. My name is Kate Galambos. I live at exit 54, which is already at a level E. And I'm pretty sure that that is going to degrade even further because many of the vehicles are going to be using exit 54. So the intersections at exit 54 are already a level of service D and E. So they're going to degrade quite a bit further. And based on the fact that we don't really have a 24-hour count, I don't think we can really understand what the roadway adequacy numbers are going to be in the 24-hour period. I'm curious about the roadway improvements that were mentioned for 1151 West Main Street. I went through the intersection today, and I noticed that there is apparently a new intersection being built. Have the 1151 West Main Street roadway improvements been approved and scheduled by Connecticut DOT? Let's see. And finally, I had a question in regard to their waste materials. Will the Amazon facility be using the transfer station for disposal of waste at all? So those are my questions. I would just hope that we could get a 24-hour traffic study done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Galambos. Evan, who's up?
Quentin Can.
Hey, good evening. Quentin Can, Helen Road, Branford. Just a couple of quick comments. I love the commentary, especially from Ms. Ryan. Thanks for that. And we heard some good technical analysis of the traffic earlier from the two gentlemen that spoke on the traffic studies. I just like to say from a very practical standpoint, if you've driven down Route 5 in North Haven and Wallingford over the last 5 or 10 years, as the two Amazon facilities have been added into that area, you will have seen the impact on the traffic on those two stretches of Route 5. Sometimes those employees coming and going, the tractor trailer trucks, and the delivery vans extend for a quarter mile or longer, coming in and out of the side roads that those facilities are on. So having a couple hundred feet of turn lane ahead of Commercial Parkway does not necessarily mitigate the issue. Just from a practical standpoint, you can drive down Route 5, North Haven, Wallingford, and experience this firsthand. And it's like hornets coming out of a nest when those vans start coming out. So that's all I wanted to say about that. I do have to drive through that area daily when I'm trying to get to the highway northbound. And sometimes the traffic is so bad as is that it'll take 20 minutes to get to exit 54, which should only be a 10-minute drive. So thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Quinn.
Mr. Ken. Yep, who's up, Evan?
Harry Moresco. You're could you unmute yourself, Harry?
Okay, thank you. Perry Maresca, 8 7th Avenue, and I am Branford's Economic and Business Development Manager. Branford's Economic Development Commission Chair Kathy Lazon is unable to attend tonight, so she asked me to read this into record, and I asked the Commission to not consider this my time in the event I have additional comments later during the public hearing tonight or it gets continued. Having said that, I will read the letter that was submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission, dated February 16th. Branford Planning and Zoning Commission, Chuck Anders, Chair, 1019 Main Street, Branford, Connecticut. Dear Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Branford, in September of 2021, at our monthly Economic Development Commission meeting, John Mancini of BL Company and John Nuff, the attorney representing the client, gave an informative presentation of plans for a last mile fulfillment center for Amazon. The planned location was the vacant property off exit 53, where the old J.M. Fields discount store and later the Cerro Shirt Factory used to stand. Decades ago, after a fire ravaged the building, it was condemned and torn down. To this day, the property remains as an abandoned, overgrown parcel of cracked pavement, weeds, and discarded rubbish. A site visible to all that frequent Walmart, all the other businesses, in the newly constructed box church on Commercial Parkway. This 21+ acre property, long listed as a BL zone for local business, allows retail. The intended use as a fulfillment center will actually bring less cars into the area than a home center or warehouse club facility that has been talked about but never materialized for years. The desired use of this nearly 100,000 square foot state-of-the-art facility falls within the recently updated planning and zoning regulations, permitting warehouse facilities such as fulfillment centers. This location and the layout of the site plan coincides with the long-term scope of the area to redesign the intersection at exit 53. Future plans to reroute a portion of the exit 53 connector to Commercial Parkway will not be affected. The property owners have designed the new facility and the parking required to not encroach on the footprint of the anticipated new road. Although this property does not encompass any wetlands, the current impervious surface has more runoff than the newly designed facility with its parking area islands, plantings, and treated catch basins. This new facility will bring jobs to the area, initially with local construction firms to facilitate the building of the project, and long-term with the personnel that will man and utilize the facility. Current job posting on Indeed through the North Haven location offers $60,000 annual salary plus benefits for warehouse managers. Part-time employees including college students, enjoy at least a $15 per hour wage in a clean, work-friendly environment. The new facility will bring increased tax revenue to the town of Branford, benefiting all its citizens. The new facility will improve a blighted property, which will benefit all that currently drive by, including others not in the area, which affects Branford's impression and reputation. After witnessing the presentation last fall, our Economic Development Commission voted unanimously to endorse this project and write a letter of support to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I am submitting this today on behalf of the Commission. Please understand and accept our wholehearted support for this project as we see this as a beginning toward a long-needed improvement of the area that is beneficial to us all in so many ways. Thank you, Kathy Lazon, Chair, Branford Economic Development Commission, Town of Branford. Thank you.
Chuck Anderson here. Thank you, Mr. Maresca. Evan, who's up? Anyone?
I do not see anyone at this time, but I would like to ask once more, if you'd like to comment, please use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen. I do not see any additional commenters.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Evan. Just so the public's aware, we are going to continue this public hearing. There's a number of additional information that our own expert needs to review and other things. So I see, Evan, it looks like somebody has raised their hand. So why don't we go ahead?
That's correct. Jeff Clark, would you like to comment? If you could unmute yourself.
I can figure out how.
There you go. We can hear you.
Thank you. And I thank the commission, and I just wanted to say I am not in complete opposition to this project. I think it actually will produce lots of economic benefits to the town of Branford, but I do have a couple of observations. Two points I'd like to just bring up. First, I'd like to support what Harry mentioned about the PODC's requirement or plan for increased pedestrian access into this location. It was designated as a, let's see, it was designated as a priority 2 sidewalk area. And so in addition to the sidewalks that should probably run all the way from the north edge of the pretzel up to the north end of where this facility will be, it all should be sidewalked, including the areas that are not owned by Amazon, but that connect down to the pretzel. When Walmart was approved, how many years ago, the original Walmart plan was before the last renovation of the pretzel, and it did not include sidewalks. And as a result of the comments that were made at the first Walmart hearing, Walmart agreed and paid for those sidewalks on the north side of the pretzel. But they never got extended up in that, far enough up in that direction. So the people who either live at Montoya or go to Walmart and now Vox Church really have no safe way to walk. People who take public transportation and go to the new Amazon facility will also not have sidewalks unless they are included in the plan. And lastly, but not least, I walked on North Main Street the other day, and I walked through a hodgepodge of areas that had sidewalks and didn't have sidewalks. And I think it would be just terribly unfair to every poor business owner in Branford who has been required to put a sidewalk in front of their parcel of land, not to require it here, when it's obviously mentioned in a design of the plan of conservation and development. And for the last 40 years, we've required it from everybody who built a commercial establishment to have sidewalks in front of their property for the public benefit. So I'd just like to support that. I think that's really necessary, and it would be good for the community. I think Amazon's a good citizen and would probably be willing to do that, and will help their employees get to work. The other part that I just like to mention is I've had some problems looking at the plans. I haven't seen them in the town hall. I've seen them, the Dropbox plans and site plans. And I'm confused by the number of parking spaces, and I would hope that Amazon would address this, because my reading is we're going to have 213 parking spaces for employees, and then they're mentioned on the site plan number SP number 2. There's a map that shows 539 company fleet spaces. So if I'm correct, the total number is 732 parking spaces. And when I hear the traffic numbers, to me, there's a kind of a disconnect. I don't know how there can only be 100 additional traffic at a peak time. I don't know if that's for the day or for per hour or what that is, but this is an awful lot of parking places. So the first question for the Amazon officials is, why do you need 539 parking spaces for fleet vehicles? And I just can't imagine why we need that many. So anyway, those are the primary questions. The traffic thing just doesn't add up with the number of parking places. So hopefully you guys will get the answer to that and feel comfortable about it. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Chairman Andre, I believe that's it for the public comments.
Okay, great. Thank you. Again, just so the public's aware, we are going to be continuing this hearing. So you will be able to comment at future meetings. That said, does the applicant wish to respond to any of the public comments at this time, or do you want to do it all at a respond at a future meeting, or how would the applicant like to proceed? And I know we got to do the zoning text amendment as well, but Mr. Nuff, what's your preference?
Mr. Chairman, we have responded to your staff comments and some of Mr. Ullman's comments. I think there's a lot, there's a considerable degree of overlap between some of the comments. And I think we can probably do it a lot more efficiently and thoroughly if we probably wait till next time, and we can, for those comments from the public in the commission or from staff that are redundant, we can just, answer them once rather than going through like that way, if that's okay with the commission.
Certainly, certainly. There have been some redundant comments. I guess I could. I don't know. You may want to rethink some of your responses as well in light of some of the comments. Maybe that's a suggestion. For example, like sidewalks. I think he said nah.
Understood.
Yeah. So okay. Okay. Are there other comments from commission members or staff before we continue these? I guess we're talking about items number 2 and 3 of the agenda, which are the special exceptions for grading and the warehouse distribution, and then we'll open the text amendment. But is there anything else before we do that from commission members or staff? Hearing none, then we will continue, I guess, numbers 2 and 3 to our next meeting, which is when, Harry? It's March.
Harry Smith, Town Planner, it's March 3rd.
Okay, so we'll continue this to our March 3rd meeting.
I would expect that to be by Zoom as well at this point.
Right, I think so. But we can, right, maybe we'll talk about that, future meetings. We'll talk about that, but okay. So that's March 3rd, Zoom remotely for that meeting. So that said, Mr. Nuff, do you want to make the presentation about the zoning text amendment? That's probably just you, I assume, right? Or others?
I can't imagine how anyone else would have anything else to say. So we'll open the rate change public hearing. For the record, my name is John Nuff, 147 Broad Street in Milford, Connecticut, on behalf of FSI Acquisitions LLC. This is a regulation amendment application to simply add 4 letters to your regulations, the designation of this particular zone to the table found at 6.6.e of your regulations, which is signs allowed in business zones. As I noted at the beginning, when our zone was created, I think it's probably just an oversight that this was not included. This zone was not included in that table, 6.6.e. And so we simply proposed to add that designation so that this zone and this property can be treated in the exact same manner with regard to signage that all of your other commercial areas are treated. So don't have anything else to add. I think it's about as straightforward of an application as this commission will ever see.
Chuck Anderson here. Thank you, Mr. Nuff. Comments by staff? Anything you want to call out in a staff report?
Evan Browning, Assistant Town Planner. Just to reiterate what Mr. Nuff just stated, in their regulation text amendment narrative, they state the proposed amendment does not include any revisions to the existing standards from section 6.6e. It simply is adding the district they propose to be in to this table.
Chuck Anderson, thank you, Evan. Questions, comments from any commission members or Barry or other staff before we open up the public? Hearing none. Does any member of the public wish to comment? Again, this is about the technical text amendment only. Any member of the public wish to comment? Evan, do we see anyone?
I do not see anyone at this time.
Okay, great. Okay, then do we want to continue this or do you want to close it? I think we can just close it. I don't, What do you think, staff?
Harry Smith, Town Planner, I see no reason why it cannot be closed. As was mentioned, it's really an oversight when the district was created and proposed on behalf of the property owner.
Okay. Mr. Nuff, you okay closing this?
I'm okay closing it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other commission members' comments? Okay, so then we'll close this matter as item number 1. That's simply the zoning text amendment to correct that oversight. So we'll close that as a public hearing, but we're leaving open items 2 or 3, this special exception. So with that, thank you, Mr. Nuff. And I have 9:35. Let's take a 10-minute break and we can come back. So let's continue then on our agenda. Item number 4 and 5, that's the 61 Bourbon Associates LLC, 61 Bourbon Drive, the old hospice and monastery multifamily revision, and that matter has been continued to our March 17th meeting. Harry, is that correct?
Harry Smith, Town Planner, the applicant, Attorney Nuff, who is with us, has requested that the both applications be continued to March 17th to allow the opportunity to receive some more input from the Water Pollution Control Authority. So I don't know if there's anything he would like to add to that. But.
No, that's it. I just need to go to WPCA and we'll have some other amendments, for you next time.
Okay. So that's it for items number 4 or 5. Those are continued to our March 17th meeting, I guess, also by Zoom at this point. One of these points, we got to talk about that, but if we go back, but right now they're still on Zoom. And then also that brings us into item number 6, which is 375 Metro LLC, the continuation of the PDD. This is particularly the site plan modification for the mixed-use development, the additional parcel brought in. And we opened, I think we closed the PDD modification in the special exception public hearing last time, I believe. And I know the site plan doesn't technically require something public hearing, but we had it scheduled, and I think we wanted to verify that, again, the strict 65 days doesn't apply, that the time frame for the others, the 65, 35, 65 would apply to this one as well. I think, Harry, is that correct, or are there other concerns, or did I mess that up?
No, I think that's correct. I think Mr. Nuff can certainly speak for himself, but I think I would not oppose determination that this application, since it doesn't require a public hearing, even though it's considered along with the public hearings for the other 2 items, is on its own track. But that my understanding of the statute is that if a site plan application is the only application pending, then 65 days apply, but otherwise the application would follow the 65, 35, 65 days, which is associated with another application that requires that time frame in a public hearing. And I would also, don't remember, I think we had some time extensions with this one possibly, but I can't recall. No, it looks like we opened within the 65, so I think we're already but could I just get you on record, Mr. Nuff, if any time extensions are required, you're willing to offer them to get us to either next week or March 3rd?
Of course, and I do agree with your analysis, Harry, that in the case where there's a public hearing for a special permit or a PDD amendment, that timeline governs and not the 65-day site plan requirement. So I think we're absolutely good on time, and my client is more than happy to work with the commission. He was aware of the Amazon application this evening, and obviously, was happy to accommodate the schedule.
And we appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so then we'll just, this matter, it really isn't a public hearing. Is that correct then? And that,
so at this point, I would say no, and you could consider it tabled until just simply tabled. I mean, we could take it up possibly. We have a special meeting sort of on deck for next Thursday, and it could be continued, tabled and picked up off the table then, or just taken up at March 3rd if we don't have a meeting on the 24th.
Okay. So that then concludes our public hearing portion of the agenda. And that next we have our minutes from our February 3rd meeting, which I believe were sent out to us.
Harry Smith, Town Planner. Yes, you have them or should have them. We did receive communication from an individual who spoke at the last meeting, and we would like to double check the recording and the content of the minutes before we want to finally say, yeah, they're ready to be approved.
Okay, so we will table the approval of the minutes then.
Did I interrupt? It's Marcy.
Marcy, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, the version that came out in the mail, because I got one of those emails, it was better, but she's got Autumn Ridge in twice, and one of the words the first word should be Cherry Hill. I don't know if that was her correction,
Okay.
but that should correct the email that I got a copy
Okay.
of.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well,
I mean, but listen to the tape again and,
yeah, we'll do that, and then we'll double check, see if there's anything else. It's a problem too. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Marcy. Correspondence, anything, Harry?
We have communication regarding a cell tower. And the location is 850 West Main Street. And it seems to be an equipment swap out. Actually installing a new generator and a new concrete pad.
Okay.
So that's it.
Okay, that's it for correspondence. Then let's go to old business. And that brings us to items number 1 and 2 are the 175 Cherry Hill Road, the 11 lot re-subdivision applications, and the special exception for grading in connection with the subdivision application. What I'd like to do is for this one is have some discussion, probably about the main issue. I mean, just my summary that the proposed subdivision here, it's an 11 lot re-subdivision, and the main issue I think is whether we should have the new road come off the Autumn Ridge Road and simply have the emergency access on Cherry Hill Road, or whether that's appropriate as opposed to having a through road. And there were a couple, and you heard the arguments regarding that. Again, there's stuff in our subdivision regulations which say you shouldn't have permanent dead end streets at all, and there should be a limit of 20, and we're already over 20, and this would increase that. And there are exceptions, and the applicant's argument was that it came within one of the exceptions, which because essentially the amount of grading and excavation that would be required, that would make it inappropriate, and it would be excessive. And that was their argument. And the neighbors were basically saying, no, you should go through. And that's sort of what we were told when we bought our place. A number of them said that. So anyway, so why don't we just talk about it? I've got some thoughts, but why don't we sort of go around and at least go through the regular members, I guess, at this point, and see what the general thoughts are. Let's start. Does anyone want to start? I could just pick someone. Fred, I'll pick you first.
I'm ready to say something.
Okay, I figured you would, Fred.
Yeah, I know. I'm in favor of the development. I have nothing against it. I think it's a good idea. I think it'll enhance the properties that are up there already. I don't think anybody, from what I heard with neighbors, are concerned about the kind of development that's going in there. And I agree with you, Chuck, that one issue is this access road. And I guess my question is why can't the developer, and you're going to tell me about money, but why can't the developer have a street that is accessed from Autumn Ridge as well as Cherry Hill. That seems to me is the issue. And to put in a access road, if you're gonna go through that kind of expense, I just say, you know what, bite the bullet and go through the expense and put the full road in. And I think you'll make all your neighbors happy, have a better development. It'll make the commission feel more positive towards what's being suggested here by the applicant. And that would be my only concern. I think putting an access road in is kind of doing half the job. Either don't put a road in at all, which I know we don't, that's not good either, or make a cul-de-sac, which is not good. The only answer is, in my opinion, is that you have to put a road on both ends of it. You have to access that development by both sides of the development, and that's what I have to offer.
Okay, thanks, Fred. I noticed, Evan, was there a raised hand from BCTV? Was there a question about that, or was that?
Yes, there was, but it looks like they
solved it. So
okay.
Okay. So Fred is. I mean, that would mean denial of this application, yes. If you want to get it. Am I correct? That's
yes.
what you're leaning?
Yes,
okay.
I would not vote in favor unless the access was on both sides.
Okay. Thank you, Fred. Joe Chadwick.
Well, I've commented previously that I am not favorably disposed to this. We end up, if you look at the site plan and everything around it, it kind of looks like alveoli and lungs. You have a bunch of cul-de-sacs that contribute, that dump into many small streets, into a single small street rather. And the idea of putting in the Hall Road as an emergency exit is just a fig leaf. It is not a practical or realistic or maintainable emergency exit. It's not an emergency exit. I don't know how it's going to be used. It just seems like a total, I don't know, just sort of a throwaway kind of concept to get past an approval. But functionally, it will not work as an emergency exit. I don't know how a breakover angle would work for a fire engine trying to get up there if a fire engine couldn't come on a normal surface street. The assertion that, well, the fire marshal looked at it. Well, the fire marshal is not a civil engineer. The fire marshal has certain expertise that don't necessarily involve analyzing grades specific to a certain situation when they just look at something. There should have been a demonstration at some point that this thing would actually work for emergency apparatus, which are typically urban vehicles and not one to climb dirt roads. I'm also still kind of, I don't want to say irritated, but those are the technical reasons. The technical reasons are it's a cul-de-sac in a place with too many cul-de-sacs, and the idea of offering an emergency road that's not really going to function ever as an emergency road. Administratively, I was kind of irritated that the second presentation was devoted to reiterating the first presentation as though we didn't hear the first presentation. I understand that there is a different economic priority to, dig a little more dirt, or God forbid, relook at the design to put the road parallel to the contours. But there was no gesture or attempt at doing anything besides reiterating the first presentation. And when we reiterated the premise that stating the regulations in the obverse somehow gave us an obligation to approve, that gave me a fairly negative perspective on the project. And that's just sort of a way of, just a point of advice. But standing strictly on the technical merits of it, I am not favorably disposed. I will be voting against.
Okay, thanks. Chuck Anders Chair. Thank you, Joe. Marcy, your thoughts? Marcy, you're muted.
Yeah,
okay,
I know. I'm just waiting. You might hear music in the background.
Sure.
To me, there wasn't a whole lot of discussion about the current status of Cherry Hill Road. And I certainly can appreciate that that's not a great, you know, primary entrance onto the site with the current grade. So I wasn't, I didn't disagree with the logic that was presented by the engineer, but, I did do my own quick calculation, and, that road all the way through the site would be like a 6% grade. So I felt that they had sort of chosen their course because of the current condition of Cherry Hill Road, and, took the path of least resistance from a grading standpoint. When I'm going to sort of be a little macro right now, but when I listen to the Amazon discussion and I think about the, exit 53 situation and the exit 54 situation, and, the potential traffic implications that, one project might have based on, Tweed expanding operations and such, I started thinking about, these roads like Brushy Plains that was presented, and the amount of traffic that has to bear, and how that's sort of a one-way in and out of this whole development. So, whether we agree or disagree that the number of cul-de-sacs, the 10 over the, recommended amount is impactful or not, to me, I'd like to see, Cherry Hill Road improved. I'd like to see potentially Hosley Avenue improved to access through the town. I'd like to see the town consider those in the future. And so when I relate that back to this project, I desperately love the project because I think it's the right density, but I just, I can't see bringing it in the way it is. So that said, when I get into the nitty gritty, I was asking questions about, what specific trees near that entrance, what is a specific, why is that so sensitive? And, they just didn't step out enough from that exercise in terms of presenting their argument. So I appreciated that their argument was valuable from the myopic point of view that they started with, but I do think that, we have to look at some of the bigger impacts in the future directions that the town is going in as far as traffic, and we need to, have 2 points of access into that Autumn Ridge neighborhood, and through the site. And I think that, it's important, even though much of Cherry Hill in that area abuts land trust, there's a very nice scenic road through Hosley Avenue that if I were coming from the highway, I would be taking all the way through as much as possible to avoid traffic at 53 and 54. And if I lived on this development, I would very much like to take Hosley Avenue and take that paper road that's there now from Hosley Avenue to the beginning point of where this project starts. So, all of that just substantiates the need to, whether it's now or in the future, at a minimum grading the project so that you can put in a through road, and that's really where I stand. It's, I would approve the cul-de-sac the way it is if I felt the grade, if they could modify the grading of the cul-de-sac so that that through road, and the pond were adjusted to make that a viable future, full connection through. I don't necessarily need to see it start that way, but I think I need to feel personally that it's possible in the future. And I don't feel that it's possible to do that if we commit to doing it the way it's graded now.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Well, it sounds like we're trying to help the applicant and give them a sense of the commission. It sounds like you're opposed to the present configuration.
I'm opposed to the way it's graded. So I don't mind the cul-de-sac, and I don't mind the idea of an emergency road through, but I wouldn't approve the emergency road the way it is graded now. It needs to be graded and, done in a way that can turn into a through road. Do I need to see the through road at the start of this project? No, because I don't think Cherry Hill Road is necessarily ready for it yet, but I do think it needs to have that possibility.
Okay, so you would eventually want a through road there.
Yeah, I wouldn't want the project built without the ability for a through road to be finished,
okay,
from a grading perspective. And so what that drives is the need for the cul-de-sac to be at a lower elevation relative to where it is now. So they would have to bring in the grade from Autumn Ridge faster. You know, they need to regrade the site the way it is now to, you know, and that would definitely impact the retention area. So I don't know if that, they'd have to do the recalculations on the water and so forth to make that work. But I'm not opposed to the project. I just would need it with some serious grading modifications attached.
Okay. Thank you, Marcy. Okay. Joe Vayuzo. Joe is muted, it looks like.
Where is he?
There he is. Joe?
Where is he?
I think he's unmuted.
Joe, you're unmuted now.
Now it's muted.
Now you're muted.
Unmuted.
Joe, press
Nine.
*9 to unmute yourself.
Come on, Joe. There he goes.
Now you're unmuted, Joe. We can hear you. Joe?
Oh.
Okay. Maybe, Evan, do you want to try to get in touch with him?
Sure. Joe, now you're unmuted again.
Joe.
Unmuted.
I thought I heard him for a second.
You might have. Oh.
I'll give him a call.
Okay. My thoughts, right, as at this point, I'm opposed to the dead end. I'm in favor of the subdivision with a through street, with a good subdivision. And my main reasons are, I think it's debatable. I understood what their arguments were about the grading and so forth, but the neighbors, the existing people who lived up there, I thought convincingly showed that, look, we expected, we're not NIMBYers. We're not saying never, I want to be open space. I know that there's going to be stuff in there and I welcome that, but we expected this to be a through road. And they had a map that showed it. It was in the 2000, whenever it was, early 2000s when this was approved, one of the drawings showed a through road, which to me, I was an alternate on the commission. Joe was a regular member on the commission at that time. I vaguely remember this, but I don't, to me, the whole reason you show a through road on a map is to say that this isn't a permanent dead end street because we show a through road. We're not building it, but that was the intent. So and the developer, we believe who we want to believe. I don't think they're making it up. So I think there is a reasonable expectation from the neighborhood that there would be a through road going through there as opposed to just an additional cul-de-sac with more houses in there. So that weighs heavily on me. The fact that people bought with that expectation and had some evidence to back that up, and I find it credible. And I'm not even, why would you even, again, we can't find, we don't have a tape recording of the meetings back then, but there was one of the sheets showed the actual, continuation of the road. And I don't even know why you'd even bother to show that other than to demonstrate, because the terms in the subdivision regulations at that time used no permanent dead end street. So, okay, so because even that, why do we approve that? Because that exceeded the number of lots on a dead end street at that time, other than the show was permanent. So anyway, that weighs in addition over to that. And I think the policy reasons for having, not having permanent dead end streets are good. There's both a public safety element and there's also just circulation element that it's good to have that. It's good to have an east-west, an east-west north of 95, east-west corridor, you know, that's part of a good street planning. So that's kind of my general thought, that's why I support that. You know, I'd be in favor of, you know, if there were some waivers or something to make it easier to build the permanent street, you know, I'd be all in favor of that if there's a good engineering way to doing that, because I'm sensitive to that as well. But anyway, that's sort of where I'm leaning on this. So is Joe, where's Evan?
Harry Smith, Town Planner. Evan seems to be headed to my office. Maybe we can get Joe accessible by phone, and maybe you can.
Joe called back in. Can you make him a call so he can unmute himself?
I can't because he's on the phone. But what I can do is just ask him to unmute, and then hopefully, if he does the *9.
No, *9 is
Oh, you getting the wrong thing. Okay, Joel, what he knows what to do now?
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, you're on.
Okay.
Great.
All right. I kept dialing and just nothing's coming through. I could hear you guys, but you couldn't hear me.
All is well now. Good.
Okay. Want me to comment on
yes.
this last?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm very much in favor of what Fred and Joe said. I went up there several times to check this out, and I think it needs to be a through road. Nothing else for a long-term situation. Once it's there forever. And just having everything coming through only one side is getting, you know, without making the connection, I think is not the right way to go. And I think it should be a through road and connecting Cherry Hill and developing the rest of that area there of Cherry Hill so it's a little more passable, making the loop and complete the loop. That's my opinion.
Okay. Chuck Anders Chair. Thank you, Joe. Okay. So it seems like certainly a majority of commission members think there should be a through road, which would mean, frankly, a denial of this application that shows it as a cul-de-sac. I'm not going to say anything more than that because the applicant may want to withdraw the application, and that would be just fine. But he asked for a and I know the applicant wants to raise his hand, even though we closed the public hearing and he supposedly can't comment. But I mean, you know,
yeah. Harry Smith, Town Planner. I mean, I did communicate with Mr. Langer and said, well, in a normal public hearing in a room, he would be able to jump up and say, I withdraw the application. So
right.
I suggested to him that we would provide him the opportunity, recognizing he can't say anything further to support the application, but that public hearing is closed, but that he should have the opportunity, if he chooses to, withdraw the application anytime up to the vote, because that's his right.
Right, right. Okay, and I understand that. And he has that opportunity. We're not going to vote on this.
So he's unmuted, and if he wants to say something, now's his opportunity.
Very briefly, thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Smith, and commission members. I don't wish to speak substantively on the application. I would respectfully withdraw the application, and thank you for your time and your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck Anderson. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Okay, so the applications are withdrawn, and we hope we provided input. Thank you.
Just to clarify, we're talking about both applications.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. I saw a head nod. So yes, both applications.
Yes, correct. Jesse Langer, Updike, Kelly, and Spellacy, correct. Both applications.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so that again is items number 1 and 2. That brings us to 3 and 4, which are Goodsell Point. And Harry, are we? I know you sent. We've sent around a revised.
I think there is Evan and I revised the draft set of proposed findings and conditions. Just FYI, they've been circulated with to the attorney representing the applicants, just for informational purposes. And we're ready to go over those. It may take 10 or 15 minutes or so to run through them. I think we're down to some pretty straightforward types of conditions. And Evan, if you're ready to do that, if you want to do that tonight, you can certainly go right ahead.
Guys, are we good for that? Is there, I'm just in terms of what else is on the agenda, I think this would probably be it then, right?
I would expect that would be it. We have talked to the representatives of 383 East Main Street, and Attorney Nuff was on earlier and said his client's willing to be taken up at a later meeting. We do have, like I said, a special meeting set up for March 24th, which could be very brief. I'll speak a little out of turn. We do have an affordable housing plan that is about to head towards the commission from the steering committee that's working on that with the consultant and staff. So we could go over that a little bit on the 24th as well, since the 3rd is a little, full already.
Okay. Okay, well, let's get this one done if we can.
Okay.
Because I think it's not 10:30 yet, so.
Okay.
Okay, so go ahead, go through your recommendations.
Can you, Evan, make it a little bigger, maybe like as a show? That perfect, thank you.
All right. Evan Brining, Assistant Town Planner. I circulated this updated staff report with these conditions last week. However, I did tweak some minor language in one of the conditions, and I also eliminated one of the conditions requiring that wetlands be delineated on the site plans after the applicant pointed out that they already had been. But I'll start with the findings. Finding number 1, these applications have been considered under the requirements of the relevant sections of the zoning regulations and the requirements of the approval of the planned development district / master plan dated March 4th, 2021. Actually, I forgot to make an additional change to that right there. Finding number 2, subject to compliance with the conditions listed below, the commission finds that the applicant has demonstrated excellence in landscaping design and waives the required landscaping per section 6.3. And the coastal site plan is consistent with the goals and policies of the Coastal Area Management Act. On to our conditions. Condition number 1, all construction shall substantially conform to the most recently revised version of the submitted plans and application documents, except that they may be modified to comply with the requirements of this approval. Condition number 2, prior to any construction activity, evidence shall be submitted to the satisfaction of the zoning enforcement officer that the following has been satisfactorily addressed. Number 1, erosion and sediment controls have been installed. B, implementation of the tree protection plan measures, and C, pre-construction meeting with the owner's representatives, contractors, ZEO, town planner, and deep staff. In the event of the construction occurring in phases, a meeting shall be held before the start of construction of each phase. Let me scroll down here. Sorry about that. Condition number 3, prior to the issuance of a zoning permit or the zoning authorization for the issuance of a building permit, the following shall be addressed to the satisfaction of the zoning enforcement officer. Changes extent of the tree protection zone noted on sheet RP to add at the end of note 10 or the edge of the drip line, whichever is greater, and also on sheet RP to rephrase to read as follows: all vegetation excepting trees in conflict with proposed work may be removed, whether noted on the plans or not. The removal of any trees not noted on the plan shall require the review and approval of the town planner, planning and zoning commission, or the planning and zoning commission, as may be required by the zoning regulations. B, the traffic calming improvements to Goodsell Road with additional details as may be required by the town engineer. C, the location and size as well as addition of appropriate screening in the form of landscaping for all ground mounted HVAC or utility equipment. D, change the detail on sheet SD02 to show the dimensions and exact content of the shoreline public access signage. E, address all comments from the town engineer's November 15th report to his satisfaction. The applicant must comply with the lighting regulations. G, the applicant shall revise sheet LA to remove the note stating dumpster enclosure from the former location of that dumpster.
Can you scroll down a little bit as you're speaking?
Sorry, everybody.
Yeah.
Evidence of the approval of the connection of the buildings proposed for the marina use to the public water and sanitary sewer. J, include additional detail regarding the extension of Goodsell Point Road. K, provide a site operations plan and a flood evacuation plan for the properties. The 70 parking spaces within the coastal jurisdiction line, which will see periodic tidal flooding. L, extend the walkway between the northern and southern lines of units to the west across the driveway, to the sidewalk on the western side of the driveway by a crosswalk, or a similar design to the satisfaction of the town planner. M, propose appropriate restrictions on lower level parking and storage for the southern units in order to meet the town's floodplain ordinance. And cost estimate of the public improvements and operations and maintenance plan. The applicant is proposing to fully address section 910F2 of the zoning regulations. O, calculations of the existing and proposed areas dedicated to marine use, such as parking, boat storage, service areas, offices, bathrooms, sales, etc. And P, a list of existing and proposed marina services to be provided. Condition number 4, prior to the issuance of a zoning permit or a building permit, the town of Branford of form and content approved by the town planner, planning and zoning commission, and the town council file on the land records of the town clerk, and evidence of such recording submitted to the zoning enforcement office shall be offered for the following purposes: access to and use of proposed public features and provisions for access to those features during the winter boat storage season. Condition number 5, prior to the issuance of a zoning certificate of compliance or a certificate of occupancy, the following shall be addressed to the satisfaction of the zoning enforcement officer: implementation of the affordable housing offer through the lump sum payment of $15,000 made to the town of Branford to be reserved for the allocation of a housing trust fund. B, financial guarantee, except that such guarantee shall be not in the form of a surety bond. C, the completion of all site work or an appropriate financial guarantee established per section 96G. D, the completion of the traffic calming improvements to Goodsell Point Road, or as may be directed by the town engineer, payment to the town of Branford for such traffic calming improvements to Goodsell Point Road. E, final as-built of the development. F, the applicant shall revise sheet SLIB entitled Site Lighting Photometric Calculation to reflect the relocation of the trash enclosure. G, the final layout of the marina to the level of detail described in section 79A1. Condition number 6, foundation as-built are also required, and evidence that they have been submitted at the appropriate stage in the building permit process shall be provided to the zoning enforcement officer. 7, the manufacturer's recommended requirements and schedule for cleaning and maintenance of elements of the stormwater management system, as well as an additional list of maintenance measures and schedule for their execution as approved by the town engineer. Condition number 8, necessary measures to control any dust generated by the spill brought into the site or movement of the earth as directed by the zoning enforcement officer. Condition number 9, no additional signage nor replacement lighting shall be installed without planning and zoning commission approval or that of its staff. Condition 10, all landscaping must be maintained as an ongoing requirement of this approval. Sorry. Condition number 11, any modifications to the site, building, statement of use, or other aspects of the property for those approved herein shall require further approval as provided by section 5.4, 9.6, or 9.8 of the zoning regulations. And condition number 12, the residential development and the facilities for the marina shall be constructed simultaneously with the specific timing to be approved by the town planner or commission.
Chuck Anders, Chair. Thank you, Evan. Does anyone have any questions about any of this?
Chuck, Fred Russo. This is for Evan. Evan, just very, very minor, but I think on 3J and 4K, the word point is misspelled.
I noticed a few of those. I'll make those corrections.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Harry Smith, Town Planner, just a couple little things while we were reading through this. So just I want to highlight that. So we're changing and finding one, the end. So the date should be March 4th, 2021. On
Right.
finding 2, I would suggest we add at the end where the landscaping shown on the plans does not fully comply with section 6.3, so that you're not waiving all the landscaping requirements, just those that are portions of the site or aspects of the site landscaping that don't comply with the regulations in 6.3. Let's see, I think we had this change in the word 3A, instead of town planner / planning and zoning commission, the word or instead of the slash. On B, it should say Goodsell Point Road, not just say Goodsell Road. D, I would suggest that adding at the end, to the extent they are available. And in E, probably the TH should go away. And on 5F, there's just a F that isn't needed at the beginning of the statement. And I think that's it.
Okay, thanks, Harry. Any other questions or comments from commission members? Okay, and the resolution covers both applications, or all of the applications, which are the
yes,
both the grading and the PDD and the CAM. And okay, then does someone want to make a motion to approve the applications? And there's 3 applications, I guess, in accordance
technically
with
2.
Technically 2. The 2 applications in accordance with the findings and conditions as have been modified and read by Harry, and including the corrections by Harry and Fred.
Chadwick moves to approve.
Motion made by Joe Chadwick. Is there a second?
Fred Russo seconds.
Fred seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Joe Chadwick, are you in favor?
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Joe Vayuso, are you in favor?
Joe Vayuso recused himself from this application.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right. Joe has recused himself. Fred Russo, are you in favor?
Fred Russo is in favor.
Marcy, are you in favor?
Marcy Pelosi is in favor.
Sharon, have you attended all the public hearings and are you ready to vote? Because I think you're up.
I didn't expect to. I just, I mean, I think the project is really good for Branford. I'm just really concerned about flooding, 10 and 20 years down the road, but I would vote yes for the project.
Okay, and the chair also votes in favor. Okay, so the applications are approved. Okay, so then going down our agenda, then I think that's items 3 and 4. Items 5 and 6 are the metro. That's something I think we can hold off on. Well, I think where are we, Harry, on that? I mean, when we have
I have drafted and just finished it this afternoon, a suggested resolution for the PDD master plan application, and some proposed findings and conditions for the site plan, the PDD site plan, and the 6.8 special exception for grading, but I'm not ready to present those yet. And I believe with the site plan application technically open, I believe the applicant has one additional change they want to make and submit revised plans for that.
Okay.
So I would suggest holding off to a special meeting on the 24th if you choose to have one, or the 3rd.
Okay, so we'll table items 5 and 6
for now. Yeah.
And then 7 and 8 are the Buckley Road where we need to schedule a public hearing. And
Right.
that'll probably be, do we know when? I mean, we got.
We don't, yeah, we still have the standing motion, but I think we need to go through that. I believe they need to wait until, excuse me, Buckley Road. We have so much on the agenda. I think we're just going to have to wait on that. And bringing us to 9 and 10, which can't have a public hearing set until the 17th, but I think we've advertised for the 3rd. So I guess I would suggest that it's open and continue without testimony to the 17th, but they need to have a consideration by the Town Center Review Board, which meets after the 3rd.
Okay. And then item 11 is single family. That's on for the 3rd?
3rd, yep, as well as 12 and 13.
Okay, so all those are scheduled for the 3rd. Okay, and then there's a new business. So we have to schedule a public hearing.
Yeah, we could do that under the motion of the commission took and approved previously. That would allow you and I to schedule a public hearing basically together.
Okay. Okay, then that, I guess the question, do you have anything for a planner's report?
The only thing really is the question of, at this point, to have a meeting on the 24th, the only things we could really put on it would be voting probably on 383 East Main Street, those 3 applications, and it'd be an opportunity to talk about the affordable housing plan. We don't have as many commissioners as would be ideal. So with the 24th so far, we only have you, Joe Chadwick, Joe Vayuso, and Sharon Hutner. Fred can't make it. I think Marcy is unsure, and we haven't heard back from Massimo. I think he's maybe as well.
Okay.
So
Harry,
yep.
Fred Russo.
Yep.
No, I think there's some confusion about it. I thought the letter, and maybe on my part, I thought the letter that went around was for the 24th or 27th of February. Was that the original letter?
It's the 24th of February, yeah.
Oh, okay, that's the one I cannot make.
Yeah, okay.
But you're not talking about this March meeting now, right?
No, the only March meeting is the 3rd so far, 3rd and the 17th, the usual meetings.
Okay, so is that meeting at the end of February still on or no?
Well, I think what my suggestion is we talk about it right now, since everyone's here, and it's not just you. So, you know, we only have I'm missing someone? Oh, Paul. I don't think Paul's just not been able to come recently, so I didn't write him down. But we only have 4 commission members who have committed to being able to come at this point.
Okay, so why don't we just not have the special meeting then, and we'll just do it on the 3rd.
Yep, yep. It's a little crowded, but and we may, you know, another thing to talk about is whether you want to try again for a special meeting in March if it gets to the point of looking like it's going to be very late to address everything.
Right. Okay. We can just do that.
Barry,
okay.
You
Hi.
have a next week in March, the end of March. There's a little gap.
We do. Yeah, it's a 5 Thursday month. So that does give us some flexibility. You're right.
Do something there.
Yep. I think we had built in, and I haven't gone over this, but I have a tentative schedule shaping up with our consultant for the affordable housing plan, Glenn Schalder, and I think we're looking at one of those Thursdays in March. I just don't have it off the top of my head.
Okay. Okay, then. So is that it then?
That is it at the moment. Yeah, Evan, unless you have anything to add. No? Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, then. So does someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
Fred makes a motion to adjourn.
Okay, Fred's motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconds.
Oh, all right. Tough call there.
Sharon,
right.
Okay. So, Joe Chadwick, are you in favor of adjourning?
Chadwick is in favor.
Joe Vayuso, are you in favor?
Vayuso in favor.
Fred, are you in favor?
Fred's in favor.
Marcy, you're in favor?
I'm in favor, Marcy.
And Chair is also in favor. Sharon, you're in favor as well, right? Okay.
Who's in favor?
Okay, great. Okay, great. Well, thank you, everyone. So,
Take care.
Thank you all. Good night.
Have a good night, everyone.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at branfordtv.org.